Good evening, everyone. When the Nordschleife opened 99 years ago, the track, you could argue, was more formidable than even in its most formidable layout as it stands right now. Back in 1927, the track used to have effectively 174 corners. Nowadays, its official count is technically 73, although how the FIA would define it, it would be a lot more than just that. But it adds to the mysticism that surrounds the circuit nestled within the Adenauer Forest, or what I should actually say is Adenauer Forest, because it's been reduced over years and years. The corner names are etched into history, one of those I've already mentioned, but you also have Bergwerk, Klostertal, the Flugplatz. All of them have their names that derive not from racing corners or named after even local people or drivers from that era. Bergwerk literally translates as mine. Klostertal is Monastery Valley and Flugplatz is airfield. Considering at the Flugplatz you normally take off in a car, that does seem rather appropriate. We now live in 2026, and despite the economic changes that have happened within the Nordschleife over the years and the issues it has faced, especially during the 1970s, it still retains its status as arguably the most iconic race circuit, not just in Europe, but in the world. The challenges that it presents to drivers are phenomenally unique. And tonight, we do have a big challenge in front of us. It is a little bit damp and a little bit wet out there. It's the final round of Season 12 here at ACC Race Nation for a 2-hour event at the Nurburgring Nordschleife. I'm Jack Millington, your commentator, as always, for the championship. We are in for a long one, and we are certainly not going to have a straightforward race. Drivers leaving the pits now for qualifying and getting out on circuit. We'll go through that in a moment, but before we do, let's just give you a very quick update on the championship protagonists and what the ramifications are for this evening. So, Mark Chapman leads the championship race. He is on 316 points. Dan Hatton is second on 310. Now, despite the narrative through this season that there was going to be double points, there isn't any double points for this final round of the season. So Dan Hatton has to make up 6 points on Mark Chapman to become champion. However, mathematically, they are not the only two contenders tonight. Will Fielding sits on 294 points. Now, admittedly, Will Fielding is 22 points behind Mark Chapman, and realistically, he'd need Mark Chapman to retire tonight. However, do not rule it out. This is one of those race circuits where a huge accident can curtail everything that your championship season has worked up towards. So anything can happen here. We have got 23 drivers racing tonight. So that will effectively mean that the minimum amount of points that Mark Chapman can score, if my mathematics is correct, is 9 points. So if he did finish last, he'd be on 325. Will Fielding would have to win, and Mark Chapman would have to finish last. So you could see it is a bit of a tall order for Will Fielding to get his first championship in ACC Race Nation. But this is racing. This is GT3 racing. As I said earlier, anything and everything can and will happen. So damp conditions, not an easy racetrack at the best of times, so the drivers have to contend with the weather. It is a little bit greasy out there. Some people are using wet tyres as well, from what I've seen in the comments area. That's going to be a curio for tonight, to see who will be brave enough to try and risk a slightly different strategy. We'll have to find out if that does happen at all. We've got a couple of people in the comments just saying hello, so let's have a look at those people. Hello to John, hope you're doing well. Hi Danny, hope you're doing well, buddy. Mikey, it is a shame you can't take part tonight, but do wish your mum a happy birthday from me. She's a wonderful woman. I hope she has a cracking time. And John just saying Rakitamanga forgot to start his lap. Yeah, I think that's the case. I think he probably is getting a lap under his belt. It wouldn't surprise me if he was deciding to do that. But you never know what will happen with Rover, the Frenchman, fresh from that podium earlier on in the season, which he's been hankering after for quite some time. See whether he can add another one to his total tonight. It's not impossible, it's not out of the question. This is one of those events where you can literally score a result by keeping it on the road. We've seen previously with John Wells, who's in the comments right now, he's had a number of top 5 finishes in recent seasons. I remember not so long ago when he was driving the big Mercedes, he got, I think it was either 5th or 6th place, if memory serves me correctly, and he just kept it on the tarmac. So that is what tonight's action is all about. We'll go back to the garage. We'll just see who the drivers are for this evening, who we have got joining us. I think we've got 2 new faces for season 12. I say new faces. Daniel Takacs, who is in 4th place, he's driving the 301 BMW. He's new to the championship completely. But Kevin McEntee has raced with ACC Race Nation before. Last time we saw him was back in season 9. And he had a fabulous couple of races. Scored a podium in one of them, was 2nd place back then. But it's good to see Kev back in the championship. So be a bit of a baptism of fire for him tonight. Let's see how he gets on. Everybody else, all season regulars or have joined in the action this season. So I'm really glad to see a bumper field tonight. It is important, because I think some people do get a little bit afraid by the 2 hours of the Nordschleife. They do feel a little bit daunted by it. It is, of course, a huge challenge, but that's the point of it. Is if you can overcome that challenge and you can go up against it, you can do quite well. There's Roland Jordan. Unlucky last week at Laguna Seca in the Mustang when he got caught up in that incident at Rainy Curve. That kind of scuppered his chances at any form of result really at the end of that race. Will Fielding out there circulating. Maybe one of the favourites for the race victory tonight on raw performance. But we have seen in the 2-hour races before that he has gone for a wander sometimes, and you know, no more was that evident at Spa back at round 5 when he was leading till about 15 minutes to go and he put it in the wall and he ended up finishing 3rd that day. That was one of those crazy races where Stuart Packham ended up taking over the lead. He crashed out and it was ended up going the way of Dan Hatton, who got his 3rd race win on the trot at that point. So anything can happen today. And I really cannot stress that enough. Really cannot stress that enough. Will Fielding, though, out on circuit in a minute. Zolt Barabas back in for tonight. And what is a delight for me, and I've been talking about this practically all season, is that we finally have 2 Nissans sharing the same piece of tarmac. Davies Altenbayer is back for the first time in a few races. We now have a benchmark for us to compare the 2 of them against. So that's going to be exciting to see it in the battle of the Nissans. Liam Watkinson has got a special livery for tonight's final race. It's a nice little bit of metallic and chrome going on there with the German flag, so that's quite a nice touch. Chris Harris just circulating and getting out on to start his flying lap. Danny Zoutenbayer, of course. The 101 Ferrari. Jamie Lee in the 43. Lois Mangle just coming out of the pits. I think it'll be a big achievement tonight for Lois to finish this race. I know that he has had some struggles this season, but he's getting mileage in, so I think tonight would be a huge result. Even if he finishes last, it doesn't matter. It's a big challenge for him, so let's see how he does. Van Buren's out there, Penders is out there, Joe Warner, who's been in and out of the pits. I think he's been trying to get his setup right, is out there. Jan Willem Boss as well, another one who got caught up in some of the nonsense in Laguna Seca, but then miraculously was running in the top 6 after lap 1. So I cannot stress this enough, ladies and gentlemen who are watching right now. It really can go in any direction. I don't think we've had a race this season that has been more up for grabs than it is tonight, because the Nordschleife 1 is a very difficult circuit to navigate around at the best of times, but 2, with it being a 2-hour race, strategy is really key in terms of tyres, in terms of keeping your fuel levels at the right point. Braking temperatures are going to be crucial as well. Not putting too much stress on the engine, keeping the car consistent. It's not necessarily about being the fastest driver out there. Practice gave us no indication whatsoever really of who could be the fastest out there today. I will say that out of the 23 cars that were in the practice session, only 9 had set a valid lap time, and the man that we're looking at right now, Steve Hall, was the fastest of them all, 2 seconds clear of Will Fielding. What we don't know is, was Will Fielding only doing a slow lap? Was Steve Hall pushing? We just don't know. There are so many variables that we're having to explore and find. But we've got half of the qualifying session down and counted. We are now going into the second part of it. I'm going to go on board with somebody over the course of this lap, but I will try and go through a whole lap of the Nurburgring Nordschleife, a 24-hour layout if I can. And we'll see how that goes. As I said before, there's Penders. Dan Hatton. His goal really tonight is to make sure he wins this race. If he does that, it'll put Mark Chapman under pressure. For those that don't remember the point system within ACC Race Nation, it's 31 for a race win, 29 for second, 28 for third, then it's 27, 26, 25, 24. So if Dan Hatton finishes in first place, Mark Chapman, if he finishes in 5th position, which will score him 26 points, that will give him the championship by 1 point. That's Mark Chapman's target for tonight. If he finishes in 5th or above, he'll be champion regardless of whatever Dan Hatton does. If he finishes in 6th place and Dan Hatton wins, they will be tied on points. Now, typically in GT3 racing, these championships are settled by countback on number of victories. John's in the comments at the moment, of course, ACC Race Nation's director. John, can you just confirm that if they do finish level on points, it goes as a countback on victories? Because if that is the case, then it would be Dan Hatton who would win the championship. So 5th is what Mark needs to get. John even saying that conditions could change during the course of the race as well. So there's a lot that can happen here. Victory countback. Thank you, John. I thought that was the case, but we will see. Chapman going for that back-to-back crown, which has not been done before in the series either. No one has managed to do that. You know, with Chappers securing season 11's title, and he did that brilliantly well. Can he do it a second time? Can he do it back-to-back? So have a cumulative total of 3 championships, because he has won a title before, let's not forget, way back. But we are watching the cars circulate at the moment. Chris Harris in the middle part of the circuit there at the moment. I think he's just coming towards Arenberg, I believe. Actually, my correction, he's coming into Bergwerk, which was where the old mine used to be. So he's just gone around Bergwerk just there at the right-hander. And there is Roland Jordan. He's got a lap time on the board of an 8:32 8.415. So let's just have a look at, yeah, Will Fielding's gone fastest on an 8.26, but that is, I think that was 16 seconds quicker than what practice conditions were like. So practice conditions were a little bit wetter than what they are currently. And Steve Hall is, well, I think that looks like a banker lap that he's done, an 8.39. So plenty of time to come from Season 8 champion. So Barabbas is just going into the final couple of corners now. We'll just follow Zolt as he goes down through the gears and into the start-finish straight. Puts the power down towards start-finish line. 5 drivers have set a legitimate qualifying effort. Barabbas is not one of those drivers, but hopefully we can get on board with him, because he's just going into the start of his lap. So there we go. Let's follow Zolt then for his only qualifying lap pretty much of the session. He's in the GP part of the race circuit at the moment. Coming into the left-hander is a little bit difficult to try and spot your braking zone, but he's got to go down through the gears, preferably into third gear, keep the car rolling. He needs to move that car to the left a little bit more. So he's going to compromise his line into the right-hander. Down the hill then, he will thunder towards the hairpin. Big stopping point on the GP loop of this circuit. He's got to spot his braking zone nicely. Down into second gear for the Mustang man, and he will just put the power down a little bit too early, and that pushes him wide. Into the Schumacher S's through the left and the right. This is important to get the line right through here, because you can lose a little bit of momentum going over the curbs, and then it's a blind crest up to the left-hander. Try and use a little bit of the AstroTurf on the inside, make sure the car doesn't unsettle itself, but keep a tight line into the next right-hander, which he's done pretty nicely as the Hungarian. A blast all the way down to the right-hander. This shouldn't be a braking point on the circuit, and his foot is to the floor. Coming into the chicane, a little bit different from the normal GP leap. It goes beyond that first point, and it's a very quick bump over the big curb on the inside of that corner. Little unsettlement from the GTR, but it complies into the left-hander, going onto the original circuit, which is effectively into turn 13, the left-hander to start us off. Now the first couple of right-handers here are all about commitment. It's important to be confident in the lap, a little bit of a dab of brake into fourth gear at the right, and completely flat until you find yourself into this right-hander. If you can use the curb on the inside, which he does, it will nicely hook the car around through the left and then through the right, over the curbs once again, and then into the left. A nice progressive line through there is crucial to a good opening sector of this older part of the circuit. Nicely done out of Hatson back, and then coming towards Floodplatz, basically where you take off. 150 miles an hour, maximum commitment through here in the right hander, 130 miles an hour through the right hander, going up through the gears into 6th at the left hander, effectively through Cottonbourne. And then he's going to come up into a very infamous corner here at Schwedenkreuz, the left-hander. Again, it's all about commitment in this first part of the lap. And look at the amount of tarmac he used in the middle of the road there just to keep the car pointing in a straight line. Zolt really committing to this lap. Nicely done through Arenberg. No harm whatsoever done for the Hungarian. Down through the hill towards Adnar Forest. As you can see, the trees have closed in a lot more. This is where nature decides to get involved at a racetrack. Over the left-hander and into the right. It's all about having a nice flow through here. If you're too tight to the line, you'll bounce over the curb and put you on the other curb, which has just happened to Barabbas at that moment. But nevertheless, he's still on for a solid lap. Towards Metzgerveld at the left-hander, coming through into this section. This is, again, really important to make sure you just get the line right through here. Don't commit to the corner too early, as it can tighten up. And he's on the grass a little bit. He had to hesitate on the throttle there just to get the car back on the tarmac. He's just got to give himself to lower his heart rate a little bit, because his heart will have been in his boots at that point. Took it very cautiously through the dip down into the left and the right handers, and then through the long right here at that corner. Into Exmoor, which is effectively going over a bridge right now through the left-hander. So more like a river that runs underneath on an actual passageway and out into the right-hander. Then he'll come towards Ausfahrt Breitscheid. That is genuinely its name. Try saying that in a drinking contest after a few. But he's done that relatively well. Through the right-hander up the hill. Got to tuck the car into the inside a little bit more for the GTR. If he'd have done that, he'd have probably saved himself about half a second. But still, that would be exceptionally harsh to criticise him. Into Bergwerk we go, the long right-hander. Can he keep the car nice and tight through there? Past the marshal post on the right-hand side. He's not doing badly whatsoever. Into a completely flat then left-hander at the Kesselchen. And this is where the driver will be able to lower that heart rate down just a little bit. But it is on an incline, so the drivers won't be maxing out their top speed. You can see Zsolt is hitting about 158, 59 miles an hour as he approaches Muck Curve, a very fast left-hander at this circuit. That requires bravery, but so does the right-hander at Klostertal. Straight over that corner, and sure enough, Zsolt, you saw him, braked for the corner. Didn't want to take too many liberties with that one. Nice braking though, down into the right-hander at the hairpin before you set yourself up for the most famous corner on the racetrack. The Caracciola Carousel. Made effectively out of concrete, this left-hander can spit you out in all sorts of shapes or forms, but Zolt's handled that really nicely. Then into, on a personal note, one of my favourite parts of this circuit. This is all about flow through here. Again, into the left-hander that then immediately switches back into a right. It's all about being patient over the top of the crest of this hill into the right-hander. Third gear, nicely done for Zsolt, over the top of the crest, and then into Wipperman. As I mentioned, flow and state are so important about attacking the curbs. A little bit of hesitancy for Zsolt through there, but it's about getting the lap time on the board, and then into the left-hander at Eschbach and into Brunchen, which is obviously the famous spectator area on the circuit. A little bit of gravel at the exit of that corner, which won't really do much if you're completely offline. You'll end up hitting the barrier anyway. Nicely done through the right-hander, and then he just has to be nice and tidily through Ellis Curve, which he does do very well. Over the blind summit then, and a quick rush down towards the Plantsgarten. The first one, a little bit wide there, but he'll be okay with that. Dips down, you've got to brake twice effectively for the right-hander, which he does do. Then into Sprunghugel and Plantsgarten 2. This is so fast through here. Look at the car wanting to take off as he went over the crest there. Goodness me, he managed to get that back down to earth. We don't want a flying Nissan at any point this round. Into the right-hander, again, it's just about making sure the lap is nice and tidy now. The mini carousel coming up, known as Klein's Carousel actually. And it is, I still think it's quite a challenge for the drivers because it is off camber and it's a little bit awkward to jump back onto the tarmac after that. Into the right-hander at Galgenkopf, the last major lengthy corner on the race circuit. And how is his throttle application? Not bad mid-corner from Zsolt. That'll give him a good run towards the main straight, which is the Dottinger Hoe. He's got time to think about his life choices up until this point, does Zsolt, in terms of what happens in his future and whether he wants to have children. I'm sure he'll be debating that in the car. But what he'll have to do immediately after that is look at where Tiergarten is. The right-hander that's coming up at this crest. You can see the sign that says way ahead. That's where he's focusing. Into the left-hander, completely flat. The car buzzing at 178 miles an hour on the speed limiter on the right-hand side. He's just got to get his braking zone right, which he is doing quite nicely here. A couple of stages to the braking there, and Zsolt will be happy with that lap. I think that's a tidy lap time from the Hungarian. He's going to come across the line, potentially with a sub 8 minute 30 by the looks of it, and that puts him third on the grid. And how key was that, ladies and gentlemen? A nice tidy lap has put him third on the grid, 10 seconds admittedly behind Will Fielding, who's having a fielding day out there. Danny Felix is coming towards the line. That puts him in 10th place, 18 seconds off the provisional pole. Jacob Byford-Rue's there alongside him. Kevin McEntee is 12th. Jeffrey Van Buren is 13th. And Joe Warner will be happy to have got a lap time on the board. But now we've got a bunch of other cars yet to set a lap time. Mark Chapman, though, is fourth, and he's got one lap on the board. So he'll have a delta that other drivers won't have in the same way. He's got a legitimate lap time to compare himself against. Of course, as is tradition with the way these races work, my headset will switch itself off intermittently during the course of the action. Now, what's crucial is that the first psychological advantage has gone to Mark Chapman at the minute. He's fourth, 11.4 seconds behind Will Fielding, but he's 3.5 seconds clear of Dan Hatton. However, Dan Hatton is also on a lap. The sad thing for us is we can't get out there now and have a look at the delta time. So we're just watching the body language of the car. It's some effort, that, from Will Fielding. But I tell you who has also done a wonderful effort, and you can see them there just in second place, and that's Daniel Takacs. Inside 10 seconds in the same car. I think he'll be very pleased with the pole position trendsetter this season, which has been Will Fielding. We've got one car in the form of Chris Harris coming towards the start-finish line in the Mustang. Let's see what the number 66 can do. Round the final few corners, very on the limit there in terms of adhesion with the tarmac. It's going to bounce over the last bit of tarmac as the car rejoins the new GP loop, and Chris Harris comes across the line and he goes up to second. And that's a good lap time for Chris, 3.2 off pole position. That'll give Will something to think about. Matt Phillips will be the next driver to come along, the Canadian. Oh, what a lap time from Matt Phillips. That's a fabulous effort from the Canadian. The number 73 has not qualified that high before. That's a fabulous effort. Well done, Matt. That is a really good lap time. He'll be pleased with that. Chappers, reigning champion, of course. New livery for tonight. I'm almost got a little bit of whiplash by how bright and green it is. But Chapman coming through those last corners, he was very committed there. Car just moving around, but he's dancing on the brake pedal and he runs a little bit wide. Will that have invalidated his lap time at the final corner? He did run across the white line, and there you go. It did. And it looked, do you know, I've got to say, in that last moment, he looked so committed to the corner. And that's going to open it up now for Dan Hatton. As it stands, Chapman is in 6th place. If Dan Hatton can get onto pole position, that is, if it were to finish that way, would be enough for the championship. But this is only qualifying, as Hatton comes through the left-hander now after the Dottinger Hose straight. How committed will the Mustang man be through these next couple of corners? Gets the car settled into the right-hander, moving around a little bit, but that is very tidy from the number 55. Out of the final corner he comes towards the start-finish line. What is the championship contender gonna do? He stays in 6th position. Well, I say he stays in 6th position. He moves up to 6th place, half a second in front. So that's a good time. What about Howard Dunn? Oh, that's a good effort from Howard. Fresh from that podium last week, he moves to 4th, and Rover Rakatamanga got himself up there in 5th place on that last lap as well. So it's Will Fielding on provisional pole for the final round of the championship here at ACC Race Nation. He's got a 3.2 second advantage to Chris Harris. That'll give him something to think about during the course of the race. A wonderful debut qualifying session from Daniel Takacs in 3rd position. 0.02 of a second clear of Howard Dunn. That margin is phenomenally close. Rover Rakatamanga is on row 3 alongside Zolt Barabas. Matt Phillips with a season best 7th there alongside Dan Hatton in 8th position. Psychologically, that's a big boon for Dan to be out qualifying Mark Chapman in 9th place. Roland Jordan rounds out the top 10. Then it's Dennis Penders and Steve Hall on row number 6. Danny Felix and Jacob Byford-Root are on row 7. Kevin McEntee and Jeffrey Van Buren are on row 8. And Joe Warner was the last driver to set a valid lap time. Not setting a lap time, the two Zoutenbayer brothers, Liam Watkinson, and a couple of others who we cannot see past the timing tower there because it won't allow us to scroll down. Until we do that, because we've got Jamie Lee, Lewis Mangle and Jan Willem Boss. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers not set a legitimate lap time. But that does happen, of course. A couple of comments have also come in there. Mikey saying, important question, Jack, when will we see you in a seat? I've said this before, I would love to race. It'd be wonderful to take part in some ACC Race Nation action. I genuinely want to do more racing. It's something that I've missed. I have had a spell actually of not racing for quite some time. I do love commentating, don't get me wrong, it is one of my joys and one of my passions. But I have missed racing. I'd love to go back into it. So maybe soon is the answer to that. But we are due to start in 1 minute and 42 seconds time. I'm going to give myself a breather before the action gets underway. I'll be back in just a moment.
Seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
So here we go then. 2 hours of the Nurburgring Nordschleife 24-hour layout is about to get underway. Thankfully, the formation lap won't actually take us that long at all. We are about to get started. If you are watching, do comment who you think is going to be the race winner tonight and who you think is going to be the champion tonight as well. That's going to be a big question. Will it be Mark Chapman? Will it be Dan Hatton? Will it be Will Fielding, the outsider? Who knows? We will have to find out. Matt Phillips is in the pits. That's a shame after his great qualifying. And of course, with it being a shorter formation lap, the drivers don't have long to think about what they're going to do. So when does Will Fielding drop the hammer? That is going to be a big moment for everybody when the green lights fly. Who will be leading into turn one? Because here we go, the race is live from the Nordschleife for the final time. Will Fielding defending immediately from Chris Harris as they blast towards turn number 1. Looks like Takax is on the outside line there trying to go past everybody, but Will Fielding has had the start he would have wanted. He leads from Chris Harris as he comes through the first couple of corners. I'm just going to get back get all the camera angles. So Dan Takacs is there. Looks like Dennis Penders was up the inside of somebody. There's Matt Phillips having that pit lane start. Looks like Zolt Barabas is on the inside of Rover Rakatamanga. You can lose it on this first lap and it'll ruin your race. You certainly can't win it on lap 1. But Rakatamanga is situated himself for 5th place. It's Barabas in 6th. Dan Hatton has dropped backwards by the looks of it. I think he's behind. Yeah, he's fallen behind Mark Chapman. So a poor start for Dan. He's got a little bit of damage to the side of his car, actually. We'll have to find out if that's any significant damage. Does look like it's all scuffed up. But Will Fielding got the start he wanted. And a good start for Daniel Takacs. He is in 3rd place. He was able to consolidate that great qualifying. Barabas is there. You can see the lights are starting to dip down a little bit. The timing tower hasn't updated where anybody is. We're following Kevin McEntee, who's behind Mark Chapman, but between the 2 championship protagonists. Well, that is an interesting position for everyone to be in. Here's Danny Felix going around the outside of Joe Warner for, it says 17th place. I don't believe that's the case. We'll have to wait for the first sector flags to come up where everybody is. Matt Phillips is in 20th, but he's rejoined the back of the pack, thankfully. So let's see if Matt can make his way up through the field. Whoa! Keep it on the road, Matt. Which he just about manages to do. Who's that running wide? That's Byford Rue giving an opportunity to Danny Felix just there. And Rover Rakatamanga is not in 2nd place. He's in 5th position at the minute. But Daniel Takacs is coming under huge pressure from Howard Dunn already in the opening 2 and a bit minutes. Normally we'd have completed a lap at any other race circuit, but this is the Nordschleife. We're not even through the first sector, officially speaking. We've got a yellow flag out there. Someone has gone around. I'm just trying to work out. It's Byford Rue who's gone across the road, but that's also Joe Warner who's gone round. Now, those 2 were together on track at one point. Don't know if there's been a coming together. But we are starting to see the night sky just descend a little bit. It's 9:39 p.m. here at the Nordschleife. And, of course, the night time will bring out a whole lot of interesting moments for the drivers to have to deal with. We've got a car in the pit. Oh, that's wide from Takacs. Going into the right-hander, and Howard Dunn. That's an opportunity for the Aston Martin. Steve Hall's dropped down. Whoa! Steve Hall, I was going to say, has dropped down the field. He nearly dropped off the circuit. Goodness me, that was a save and a half from the Season 8 champion, and that's Jeffrey Van Buren. Is he getting round the outside of Joe Warner, or is that Joe Warner attacking him? Either way, it's a good fight. But Van Buren goes the long way around in the end. And Dennis Penders is up to 6th place. I think that was Daniel Takacs who's just gone off the road. I think he's gone off just at... I think I'm right in saying he's gone off in the background there. I wonder if he's gone off as he's approached... Yeah, I think he's gone off on the approach to Adenauer Forest. I don't think he's gone off midway through the corner. Well, we've had a frenetic opening 4 minutes. Let's just get back to the garage. So Chris Harris is doing a great job here. He's keeping Will Fielding honest at the moment, but that means Howard Dunn now is up to 3rd place. He scored 1 podium last week. Can he get a 2nd? Rover Rakatamanga is looking for his 2nd as well. Zolt Barabas looking for his 1st. Then it's Dennis Penders, Mark Chapman and Dan Hatton. The protagonists are together. The championship contenders. Let's get on board. Oh, a little wobble from Chappers, and that's going to give an opportunity for Hatton to look to the outside line for the left-hander. Oh, trying to do that through Orschfart is very difficult, and look at Kevin McEntee trying to find his way past. Oh, Dan Hatton, at the minute, we've got a car in the pits. I think that's Takacs who's gone back to the pits, unfortunately. We've got 2 cars in the pits, actually, for that matter. Which is a great shame. In fact, the number 100 is just coming out of the pits now. And that's Jan Willem Bosch. So I'm not sure what happened to Jan Willem over the course of that lap. Howard Dunn still in 3rd place. Rover Rakatamanga a little bit further back. He's got Zolt Barabas right with him. That's not a car you want to have with you, especially that close on the straights, because The Nissan will run wide, but also have the overspeed on the Lamborghini. There's so many different sections of this circuit where car adaptability will be just phenomenal here. It'll have such an impact on the driver's confidence. So Will Fielding is 2 seconds clear of Chris Harris. He's then 6 seconds clear of Howard Dunn, 7.7 in front of Rover Akatamanga, and then we've got all the other gaps there. So Dennis Penders is up to 6th place. Dan Hatton's got past Mark Chapman. We haven't seen that on lap 1, but the Ford has moved in front of the Aston Martin. So that is important for the championship fight. As it stands, just doing some quick mathematics, of course, the gap is now 5 points in the driver's standing. So Dan Hatton's going to have to find his way up to 2nd place at the minute if results stay as they are. And Kevin McEntee seems to have found his mojo. He's right back in the groove and he's following Mark Chapman. We've said that before. Okay, McEntee really putting the McLaren on the limits here. I don't know if Chappers realises he's got his right indicator on. Oh, that was a touch wide there. Now, apparently, according to a race director, the game has slotted out the race time incorrectly, so we're going to have a half day, half night race, which that is going to throw a cat amongst the pigeons, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Over the crest and down through the gears. The drivers have to try and navigate as best as they can at Plantsgarten. This is a very committed part of the circuit, and Chappers is having a stroke. He's got both of his lights flashing now. He's fortunate that there's no one really near him at the minute. I don't know if Chapman is just taking his time, just trying to find his way into the race. But we're following this fight. This is the closest one at the minute. Well, it was until Howard Dunn went off the road. Yeah, there was a brief... there's a yellow flag. That's Steve Hall who's gone round. I'm not trying to find Steve Hall. I'm actually trying to find Howard Dunn's rear view camera, because you can see the Nissan of Zolt Barabas is coming for the Lamborghini. And the Hungarian moves into 4th place. And I think he's going to just about run out of straight here. But that Nissan is eclectically quick. That is phenomenal straight line speed for the Nissan. And he moves up to 4th place now. Do not rule Zolt out here. That straight line speed on that Nissan will just give him a bit of an advantage. Something psychological about that. Knowing for the drivers they have to push really hard to pull away and maintain position, because the Nissan just breezes up to the back of everybody. Mark Chapman's still under pressure from McEntee as they cross the line to start lap 2 with 1 lap in the bag. Oh, and I think Davies Attenborough has gone off the track. And so has Mark Chapman. That line's not the right one at all. McEntee's right there, but he just gets the line a little bit wrong. Just going to cut back and just see. So yeah, you got Roland Jordan in 10th place. Danny's Attenborough's 11th. Then it's Byford Rue, and I think, yeah, that's damage for the Nissan of Davies Attenborough. Trying to get the right camera angle is a little bit challenging here. So Steve Hall hit the barriers on lap 1. No damage on the right hand side, but there is on the left. I'm fairly certain when he turns in, you can just see he scraped the rear left arch on that 296 GT3. There you go. There's confirmation of the damage there for Steve. So hopefully that's not too major. Davies Attenborough looks like he's nosed the barrier, and the front bonnet is just dangling about at the minute. We have got a retirement from the race, and I think that is, sadly, Daniel Takacs, who has retired, which is such a shame, because I know that he had to stop, but I do feel that if he'd have carried on, he might have been able to have still got a relatively decent result. But alas, that isn't the case. We have lost one Hungarian, and there goes a Dutchman flying off the road. Just about managed to gather that all together, did Davies out and Bayer, but that's all okay for now. Will Fielding has the lead by 5 seconds from Chris Harris. Oh, there's an accident. That's up. Barabas has gone round. Rakitamanga goes through. There's Dennis Penders. There's a huge pile up at the back. Howard Dunn's got damage. And I think Zolt Barabas has got damage as well. And the first big incident of the race involving the front pack has happened after just 10 minutes. Is Howard Dunn going to get out of the way? Was there a coming together between the two? Was Barabas or Dunn at fault? Barabas trying to find his way through. Dunn's got damage. And Barabas moves in front. Now that has completely changed the complexion of this race. So that means that Rover Rakitamanga is up to 3rd. Dennis Penders is in 4th. I think that will put Dan Hatton up into 5th place. There you go. There's confirmation for Dan. Then it's Mark Chapman up to 6th. So he's 1 place away from where he needs to be to retain his title. Then it's Kevin McEntee. And then it's Barabas and Dunn. We're going to have a look at what happened there. And I think we should do that straight away if we can. We can't do that. Now, that's the one thing with this circuit and being on PlayStation is that we can't actually go back to a live replay of what happened. So normally on Jack Play we'd be able to go back and have a little look at it, but alas we can't. But what I can tell you is that Howard Dunn has certainly come off of that worse. However, they have both fallen out of the podium contention. But I have to say, as the night starts to roll down now, Mark Chapman is still under huge pressure from McEntee, and Barabas has come back to join in the fight here. Oh, it's contact between McEntee's put him in the wall. McEntee puts him into the wall. And then Chapman hits it. Oh, and it's all carnage, and they've all gone into one another. The championship leader has hit Strife, and Kevin McEntee has run into the back of Mark Chapman, and that looks like significant damage. That is huge damage for the championship leader. And McEntee's hit him again. Oh, you would not want to be... Oh, and Danny Zoutenbayer's just run into the back of Kevin McEntee. If you were in Kevin McEntee's pit garage right now... Oh, and is that Mark Chapman going back to the pits? It is. Unbelievable. And that was the fear. That was the fear that was listed earlier on. There were comments being made about an interloper, a joker in the pack. And it has happened, and Mark Chapman has had to go back to the pits. Dan Hatton won't know this unless he's watching in the background. But Dan Hatton stands primed as Zolt Barabas almost runs into the barrier. Dan Hatton stands primed to win the championship here at season 12. It's not over by a long shot. We're only 15 minutes into the race. And I'm fairly certain there is visible shock from the people who are watching right now at that. Because... I mean, I'm almost lost for words, and I'm the commentator, but that was always the... And there's rain. There's rain out on the circuit, ladies and gentlemen. You just saw that then. So as I've just talked about one huge significant development in the championship race, now we've got rain. Riding on board with Barabas, the windscreen wipers are on. And now the new question becomes, when do you pit? If you pit too early, you burn up the wet tyres, and you won't have any grip for when the real rain comes down. Or do you stay out in the hope that it doesn't go... Dan Hatton's just gone off the road. Dan Hatton nearly fell off the circuit. He's struggling to keep the car in a straight line. He's had to move out the way. Dan Hatton has just moved out of the way for Howard Dunn and Zolt Barabas. Dan doesn't want to be anywhere near anyone at the minute. He's off the road, I think. Yeah, he's all over the shop. This has blown the race wide open. Kevin McEntee's back in the pits. Goodness me. Will Fielding leads the way. He's 6 seconds clear of Chris Harris. Rover Rakitamanga's gone round. He was on for a podium. Dennis Penders is up to third. And look at this. Howard Dunn is closing immensely onto the back of the Ferrari. The closing speed. They must be running different tyre compounds here. There has to be the case. Rover Akatamanga gets the car pointing in the right direction. The race director can't find the car that we want to be on board with. There looks like there's no grip at all on board with the Ferrari. Despite the damage to Howard Dunn's car. Look at this. He can't turn through the corner. Will Fielding is going down Dottinger Hoe straight now. He's just towards the end of it. For those two at the front, Fielding and Harris, they arguably just about missed the worst of it. If they're not on the right tyre, they can come in the pits now. Wow. And look at this. Zolt Barabas is going to re-overtake somebody on the main straight. As the rain falls down, there's a yellow flag in front of us. Is that Rover Rakitamanga? He has gone back to the pits. Oh, Dennis Penders almost losing control of the car into the braking zone. Will he go into the pit lane? Yes, straight away. Into the pits he goes. I think Dan Hatton will do the same because he mustn't be on the right tyres right now. Penders, Howard Dunn. Oh, Hatton, can he get it? Car stopped. He's going to slide. He just about gathers it all together. Mark Chapman is absolutely furious in the comments. But as it stands, with Dan Hatton going into the pits, if everybody else behind him is on the right tyre, in theory, Chapman could still be leading. Harris runs deep at the penultimate corner, as the hairpin, I should say. But this has blown the race wide open. If Dan Hatton has had to pit, and a load of people behind him also carry on, so Steve Hall's carried on. No, looks like a few more are coming into the pits. So I don't think the race is over by a long shot. So if Dan Hatton is in 8th position, Mark Chapman is in 18th. Mark will need to get back up to 12th place. The angriest drive back through the field in history. It's not impossible. I've seen it before. Is that Lewis Mangle going past? It is! Lewis Mangle was on the right tyre. Lewis Mangle, if my logic works, it's Will Fielding, then it's Chris Harris, who I think is definitely on the wrong tyre here. He's struggling in the Mustang. Then it's Zolt. Then it's Roland Jordan. And then it'll be Dennis Penders. No, it'll be Howard. Yes, it will be Dennis Penders. No, it'll be Howard Dunn. Then it's Dennis Penders. No, it's not even any of that. This is very difficult to call where everybody is right now. Absolutely unbelievable. It looks like, according to this, we've got Jacob Byford-Rue running in 5th place. What a story. Roland Jordan running in 4th place. This will be a welcome tonic after last week. Jan Willem Boss is in 20th. Howard Dunn, looks like he's got that damage fixed on his Aston Martin. No, he hasn't. He might have he stopped it flapping around, maybe. He's in 7th place. He runs very deep. So that would mean that I think he's 8th place, actually. So that puts Lewis Mangle as running in the highest position he's ever ran, which I think is 7th place. I know the Timing Tower says he's 8th, but he's clearly in front of Howard Dunn right now. And if that is the case, what a brilliant strategy call from Lewis. He has run off the road a little bit there. Just keep it on, pointing in a straight line, Lewis, because you're doing a strong job at the moment. He is being closed corner by Howard Dunn. and he probably will get overtaken in a moment, but still, you've got to highlight a good strategy call from somebody who isn't normally running inside the top 10. He's just taking it easy. He's going to move out of the way, and Howard Dunn goes past, but well done, Lewis Mangle. Really good effort from him. Mark Chapman in 20th place at the minute. Long way to go. Salt Barabas circulating now in 3rd place. 8 seconds clear of his good friend Roland Jordan. Looks like Roland's actually catching his friend. I mean, the pair of them have never had a podium in ACC Race Nation. That might be about to change. We'll have to wait and see. Davies Altenbayer is battling with Danny Felix, so let's watch this. And of course, with the wet conditions and the darkening skies, this is only going to become extremely more challenging. And I've also just worked out that Dan Hatton's in 14th position and that Mark Chapman is in 20th. Oh, that's wide from Danny Felix into the wall. That'll be a glance at the barrier, I think. We have lost a car. We've just lost someone else from the race, and Sattenbayer is so close to the wall. Davey was saying that he's not actually run around this track previously, which is impressive. Just need to work out. Someone has just retired. I think 2 people have just retired, actually. It's saying that Dan Hatton is in 9th position, but he's very clearly behind. This is what we have to try and contend with. What you can see is what I can see, everybody at home. So Dan Hatton is not there. He's whoa, wow, wow. Have you ever seen a car sideways like that at Flugplatz? Goodness me. He must be breathing at 4 billion miles per hour after that. We've just had a yellow flag. I think that's Kevin McAtee who's gone off the road. Yeah, he has. Drama sadly involved with Kevin. That might have just impacted the championship massively. Chris Harris is in 2nd place. Zolt Barabas is 3rd. Roland Jordan is 4th. And Jacob Byford-Rue comes into the pits. So the Audi deciding that this is the moment to go. Hang on a minute. Has Jacob Byford-Rue just pitted? Yeah, I think he's just pitted because something has happened. I think something sadly has happened to Jacob Byford-Rue. And that's a massive shame because he was running so well. I do hope he hasn't had to be called out because he did say there was a potential risk of that happening. As Jan Willem Boss comes out of pits. And that's Chris Harris running off the road. Chris Harris, I think, has got the wrong tyres on as well. I think he needs to pit. I don't think he's running wet tyres. I think Barabas is. I certainly feel like Roland Jordan is. Steve Hall, despite his spin earlier, which I think probably was contributed by the fact he was running wet tyres on a dry tarmac. Oh, that's the wall for Steve Hall, and he bounces off the other side. I don't think that's a commentator's curse, because that happened as he went off the road, and I think that's significant damage for the number 5. Let me just have a look. We'll get there in the end. Let's just have a look at the wheel. Yeah, that's a long way to drag that car back as well. That is a very long way. There's an orange flag out. They've got to be very careful, Howard Dunn, as he comes past Steve Hall. And sadly for the Ferrari, I mean, Steve will do well to get that car back. Is that Zolt Barabas who's gone off? I think it is. No, false alarm. It wasn't. It was actually, what confused me for a moment, it was that it was 447 and there's 777, so it was actually Kevin McAtee who'd gone round there. Oh, Jacob Byford-Rue saying he disconnected. No. Oh, what a great shame. He was running so well. And out of the pits he comes. Well, it's all kicking off here. Will Fielding has come into the pits. Let's just bring you in on board with somebody. Let's go with one of the drivers out there on circuit. And I'm going to go quiet for just a moment. I want to bring you an on board with someone who's circulating around one of the challenges of the circuit. Let's go on board with Davy Zoutenbayer for just a moment. I mean, I'm watching just as you are right now on board with Davy Zoutenbayer, and this race looks incredibly difficult at the minute. Sun has disappeared. There's still a little bit of daylight out there, but it's, wow, being replaced by the sideways GTR of Davy Zoutenbayer. I'm not surprised that he just slowed down for Plantsgarten 2 there. I'm really not surprised. That was a huge moment. Steve Hall is dragging that Ferrari back to the pits. If he does get back to the pits, it's actually quite a good thing for him because he won't have lost a lap. He will, of course, lost a heap of time during this process. But he won't mind that whatsoever. So Will Fielding did pit. So these four at the front, they did actually have to pit, as it turned out. Good pit stop for Roland Jordan. Comes out behind Chris Harris. So Chris Harris had damage there during the course of that, or he's had to put new tyres on, or something has occurred. That looked like an interesting pit exit line, ladies and gentlemen. I'll let the race stewards be the judge of that one. But logic serves me correctly. It means that Zolt Barabas is up to second, and Roland Jordan is 2 seconds behind. By the looks of it, rain's certainly getting heavier. Howard Dunn looks like he's actually in front. Yeah, I think Howard Dunn is in front of that group who've just pitted. Yeah, Dennis Penders is up to third then. Lewis Mangle, he needs to make a pit stop because he's on the wrong tyre, bless him. And Steve Hall will get that car back to the pits. He's right there now. And Joe Warner out there, I think he's got in front of Jamie Lee, who's got damage. Weather is, well, I'm not going to say that out loud actually, but that is an interesting comment that John has just made from Race Control. I'm not going to repeat that out loud just in case anybody is listening in, but still more action to come. We're a quarter of the way through the race here at the Nurburgring Nordschleife, a 24-hour track layout. Will Fielding has a half a minute advantage over Howard Dunn after having that accident earlier on. We didn't see what happened with him and Zolt Barabas, but it did happen. But the problem for him now is there's one man who is looking incredibly effective in these conditions. It's Dennis Penders. He's very quietly got on with the job. And I've spoken about this before with Dennis. I know that I talk about him a lot. I think probably more than most other drivers. That's wide from Howard Dunn. Ooh, hang on to your belts and braces, everybody. That was going wide. That's not what you want to have when it's absolutely chucking it down with rain. But I said it just then. I do talk about Dennis Penders probably more than any other driver, but this is what consistency does. Someone who just adapts to the conditions around him and gets on with it. There's a lot to be said for drivers who can manage that. But Dennis is right on the rear bumper of Howard Dunn here. Up towards Adnar Forest. Into the right, then into the left. This is perhaps the closest fight on circuit at the minute. Let's get a driver's eye view. We'll go with the helmet cam. And this is what the drivers are navigating. You can see that Dennis was searching a little bit. Oh, wide again from Dunn. They're both fighting for a podium. They've both had a podium finish this season. They're looking to add a second one to their tally. Howard Dunn looking for his best ever result in the league. Dennis Penders hoping to equalise his best ever result in the league. And Zolt Barabas isn't far away, 7 seconds behind these two, and catching, I think. That is an estimation, but it does look like that the gap is fluctuating enough for me to suggest that that is happening. There are certain points on this circuit where timing tower doesn't quite work. I think Byford Rees had a spin out on circuit. I think he's had that happen up by Hoacht, which is near the top part of the circuit. But Penders is putting the pressure on, keeping himself with Howard Dunn, who is taking a really long line there through Birkvirk, but it actually really worked out for him. That was a really nice line from the AMR V8. Dan Hatton is in 11th position. Mark Chapman is in 18th place, or 20th place at the moment. So, as it stands, Dan Hatton's only leading the championship by 3 points. That's not impossible for Mark Chapman to come back, you know, from this. It's not at all impossible. And Roland Jordan is not far away from Chris Harris in the battle for 5th. But at the Nordschleife, it's one thing to catch a driver. It can be quite difficult to overtake, though. But the drivers are just starting to acclimatise to the conditions. As the raving party atmosphere goes on in the background. Look at the bright red, green and blue colours of the stands back there. Jan Willem Bosch doing a good job in 16th place. Riding on board from the rear view of Howard Dunn. The South African, as I said before, scored that 3rd place finish last week at Laguna Seca. An overdue podium in that car. But now he's under big stress from Dennis Penders. The Belgian, as John said, drives a sensible race all the time. And I think if any of the younger drivers or more inexperienced drivers want to have a look at someone, want to learn from somebody who will always be a consistent performer, look no further. Penders always shows up. And look at this, and look at the pressure he's putting on here. For 2nd place, he is very confident in this section of the race circuit. Oh, big jump over the curbs there at Plants Garden. Down into the second part of that. It's such a difficult corner, that. Even in dry conditions, it's so challenging through there. Ooh, a little bit wide. See if we can get on board with Penders. I have to say that rain looks like it's intensified a little bit just from the onboards that we've had. Wide again from Dunn, but he might just be getting the line right for this final corner. He runs wide. Now we know that the AMR's got a good pair of legs, but the problem is that it doesn't have the slipstream, and this might be Pender's opportunity here. Up through the gears, he's buzzing the limiter up to 6th. 165 miles an hour, and the Ferrari and the Aston Martin go wheel to wheel down the Dottinger Hose straight, and I think, oh, this is incredibly close. You don't want either of the two drivers to be stupid, and I think that is... Oh no, there's contact and Penders goes round. He just about nudges the barrier. Can he get the car turned around? He can do. He's going to have to wait for Zolt Barabas. He'll be gifted a podium place. I think Howard Dunn was flashing the lights to let Penders through, and then the door stayed open. I think the fortunate thing for that is that Penders hasn't had any big damage from that. That looked like a graze of the barrier. He should just about get away with it. He's lost time to Howard Dunn. He's lost 14 seconds because of that accident. But the main thing is his car is still in the right place. So Penders will have to carry on, dust himself down. So Zolt Barabas moves back into the podium places. Dan Hatton up to 10th, whilst all the drama kicked off. But Dan Hatton's still only 3 points clear in the championship standings. He is, however, not far away from Danny Zoutenbayer. Oh, actually, Danny Zoutenbayer is up to 7th place. Davy Zoutenbayer is the one who's 3 seconds in front. Dan this season, I've mentioned on a number of occasions, him in that Mustang just seemed to have come alive in this championship. He was always a front runner in season 11. He had so many near misses with the podium before he got there at the end. But in this season 12, him and the Ford team have struck an unbelievable partnership together to put himself in this position for a tilt at the championship. And right now, if the race were to stop, if we had a red flag, it would go to the man in the 55. However, we've still got an hour and 21 minutes remaining in this race. There is certainly a lot that can change in that matter of time. Chris Harris still has Roland Jordan just haunting him in the headlights. Every time he goes around the corner, there's a quick glimpse of the other Mustang. There it is, just in the background, reminding him that he's there. And the two Mustangs together on the camera tracker as well, which is good. Jan Willem Boss has got in front of Jamie Lee in the other Mustang. And we have got a pit stop. Is that Mark Chapman going into the pits? It is. So Chapman was up to 17th place there. Which, if my mathematics serves me right, that would put him 1 point behind Dan Hatton in the championship fight. So this is all to play for. There are still people out on circuit who could determine the championship standings here. I don't think this is over. I think the only driver who is wishing for a retirement is... Oh, Jamie Lee hits the wall. Just caught the edge of that. The only driver who's wishing for a retirement right now is Will Fielding. Because as it stands, Will Fielding can't win the championship. He would not be outscoring Mark Chapman by enough. He needs 22 points on Mark Chapman, and right now he's only getting, it looks to be 18 from what I can see, which isn't enough. I think Joe Warner's gone round. Mark Chapman, that is confirmed. So Mark Chapman in 18th, make that 19th place now. So I think, yeah, so if Mark Chapman finishes in 19th position, we'll give him the championship, but he would still be just in front of Will Fielding, I think by maybe a point or two. I haven't forgotten that either, John. That's something that I will talk about in a little bit. Chapman now down in 20th place. I don't think that is the case. I think that's the game circulating positions around based on infrequent GPS data. Will Fielding has a 44-second advantage. We've got Byford Rue off the road again by the looks of it. That looked like Dennis Penders had slipped off the race circuit then. I might be incorrect. I think it might have just been him running wide, but that's... Well, looks like we're starting to descend into the inky blackness of night now, everybody. There's no sky really to look at anymore. It's very, very dark. And the new challenges posed to the drivers. Mark Chapman thinking it's game over. It doesn't look like it is, Mark. I think there are a few drivers in the field who have spread out quite significantly. And Dan Hatton at the minute, well, he has got in front of Davies Altenbayer. But that really is the next car up the road is 10 seconds away. Dan Hatton's only in 9th position. If Mark Chapman were to finish in 14th place, that would give him the championship. So can't give up. That's the crucial thing for everybody here. You cannot give up. And we have got rain intensifying, and this can cause all sorts of carnage. It really can. Will Fielding is just having a Wednesday evening drive, but he has been fantastic as Will this season. 5 race victories, only one short of what Dan Hatton has, to be fair. I mean, it's quite incredible actually that we've had 14 races this season, and most of them have been taken up by either Dan Hatton or Will Fielding. It's been such an incredibly dominant season from these two drivers in terms of race wins. The only other race winners we've had this season was Ali Pocket 2 weeks ago, being the first woman ever to win a race in ACC Race Nation. We had Jordan Harding with his first ever win in a championship back at the Red Bull Ring. Stuart Packham the week after that. Those are the only other 3 drivers who've won a race. It just shows you the level of performance from Dan and Will. And if Will does win this race, he'll be level on race victories with 6 out of 15. That really just shows you how brilliantly competitive, how brilliant Will Fielding and Dan Hatton have been this season. But it also explains how fantastic Mark Chapman has been. If you look at how many podiums he's had this season, he's had 7. 7 podiums. And he is out of position at the minute, but with the way the conditions are, it is still absolutely wide open as Will Fielding moves on to lap number 6. Lewis Mangle, he's still not pitted as Lewis. He's now running in 12th place, is the M4 driver. He's still got to make a pit stop, so he might slide down the field and slide off the road. Manages to get back on. Liam Watkinson is in 14th place, so he's having a bit of a struggle. Does his car light up in the night sky? That's fantastic. Just a little aside from me there. That's fabulous. That the way that the lights are lit up on his Porsche. You can really see the car. Same with Kevin McEntee's actually, who has been rooted in 20th place since the incident happened. Danny Felix out there. I know that the GT3 cars, they do typically light up. I like the way that the Porsche pops. Looks really good. Felix off the road. Don't want to be doing that too often, but he's in a bit of no man's land now. Is Danny? He is naturally going to be quicker than Lewis Mangle, and that's no disrespect to Lewis. It's just that Danny is a quick driver. But after Lewis Mangle makes a pit stop, he's 3 minutes in front of Joe Warner, and 46 seconds behind Davy Zoutenbayer, which is quite an immense gap. Matt Phillips has gone round. Just looking to see Canadian with the damage. Looks like he's got a cracked windscreen, but I can't quite see from this angle. Whoa, big slide through there. Yeah, John, you're saying the same thing that I literally just thought. It does look like as if it's got significantly less intense. And the rain looks like it's gone back to sort of those... The track looks like it's gone back to those greasier conditions that we saw earlier in the race. I wonder if anyone will be brave enough in a few minutes' time to decide on a pit stop. Because somebody could make quite... This is one of the unique elements of the Nordschleife, is because the lap is so long, if you do make a decision, you can stand to gain a huge amount of time against your competitors. Unlike another circuit where you can gain, a good few seconds, here you could gain 30 or 40 seconds with the right choice. But riding on board of Jamie Lee, that certainly looks... I wouldn't say it's dry. You can see the way that the lights are shimmering off the bottom of the reflection from the road, but that certainly looks a lot less intense now. Joe Warner out on track in the Mercedes in 13th place at the minute. I think Joe's had... I think everybody would agree that Joe has had a tough season. I think the Mercedes has been quite a trial and a tribulation for him. However, I think he will get a lot of credit from the field for persevering with that car. It is certainly not the easiest to drive. As he slides off the road almost as if to prove my point. But I think that he will have learnt a lot from that car. I think he'll be able to take what he's learnt and put it into a new vehicle for season 13 for sure. But Joe will keep circulating. Danny Zoutenbayer has gone into the pits. So he's decided to top up the fuel tank. I think that's what's going to be the plan for the 101 Ferrari. Byford Rue's out there still in 19th place. Steve Hall is in 17th place. And yeah, confirmation that Danny Zoutenbayer is in the pits. Jeffrey Van Buren is up to 7th. And Dennis Penders is in 4th place. He's not lost any time since his incident with Howard Dunn earlier. I think Jamie Lee has gone round. He's got going again by the seams of it. Dan Hatton now, to be fair to Dan Hatton, he's absolutely flying. Because he was 10 seconds behind Jeffrey Van Buren. He's now 4.6 away from the Dutchman. But as I said before, once he gets past Jeffrey Van Buren, if he does manage to do so, he then has to find 44 seconds to Roland Jordan, which is a tall order around this racetrack. And, let's not forget, he is carrying ballast from last week. Because Dan finished in 2nd place. So he's got 20 kilos to lug around in that Mustang, which won't be easy. Chris Harris is doing a solid job in 5th position. I think he's just trying to get back into a rhythm following on from his few slips and slides off the road earlier. He did look like he was Will Fielding's closest challenger up until he slipped off the road during that wet phase, and he's just getting back into grips with that car. He is the lead Mustang in the race at the minute. 7 seconds in front of Roland Jordan, so he has managed to break the elastic on that gap a little bit. There is the Mustang of Roland Jordan. Should we briefly ride on board with the 973? There's Jan Willem Boss going across the line in 14th place. He's not far from Joe Warner in the Mercedes. In fact, there is the Mercedes just in front of us. That was a really good braking zone actually from Willem Boss then. That was really nailed turn 1 actually. Good going from him. Mark Chapman running in 21st place at the moment. But this is the fight that I wanted to look at, because Howard Dunn is not alone. Those white lights from that Nissan are just bearing into his soul. There's another slide, it looks like, for the 007 of Byford Route. On board with the Nissan, the Hungarian looking very strong tonight. Despite his contact or incident issue that happened with Howard Dunn earlier, he has shown some very strong pace. He certainly looks like he's a level above the competitors that surround him at the moment, but we haven't seen him really in clean air to see what his pace is like compared to the race leader. I mean, Will Fielding is 52 seconds up the road. Wow, I thought Barabbas was going for a lunge. I think that was... Oh no, he's hit the back of Howard Dunn. And it looks like he's going to drive off into the distance. I might be completely wrong there in terms of if he did hit the back of Howard Dunn. Only because it looked like, from my angle, he did. I mean, please do correct me if I'm wrong there. But if that is the case, it's put... Is that Howard Dunn? Has he gone to the pits? He has. Howard Dunn... Oh, he'll be furious. He will be absolutely furious. John Wells saying looked like to slow a lot more than what he needed, but regardless, it has put the Aston Martin in the barriers. That'll be one for the stewards, I think, to have to confer about, which will change the complexion of this race again. It will put another car on the same lap as Mark Chapman. It's all kicking off here. We're not even halfway through the race. So Zol Barabbas is now second. He's 6 seconds in front of Dennis Penders, who's now up to third place. You can just see the Ferrari's headlights illuminating the background. And then just even further up the road was Chris Harris, who's now in fourth place. But whether he wanted to or otherwise, Zsolt Barabbas has now got clear air in front of him. So let's see what the Hungarian can do in that car. Davy Zoutenbayer is doing a great job in 9th position. The Nissan just floating around, really. I think this is, like we were discussing in the general chat area, this is quite a big race for him. He's not... I'm just looking, is that Roland Jordan who's gone off on the main straight? There was a yellow flag for Roland Jordan on the main straight. He wasn't that far away from Chris Harris. He's miles behind now. I'm just wondering, did he go off the road? He must have done. He must have done at that moment. So Roland Jordan's gone off the road. Dan Hatton's got in front of Jeffrey Van Buren and is now in 6th place after the trials and tribulations that Dan has seemingly faced this evening, because he's been off the road as well. That's up to 6th place. Jeffrey Van Buren will go up to 7th. Davy Zoutenbayer, as I was saying, this has been a steep learning curve for the Dutchman. He hasn't raced around this circuit, and racing at night with a more of a greasy track now, I would say, than a wet circuit, but he did have it before. I think he's done an astonishing job at this point in the race. The rain is still there, actually. Look, yeah, and I think that just confirms it. Davey was looking for the wetter parts of the circuit there, and I'm just wondering, with Howard Dawn and Kevin McAtee in the pits, I'm just wondering, are we starting to hit that phase of the race now where people might be looking to go back onto the drive? Yeah, I was just saying, I wonder if the weather is going to start moving back towards dry tyres. Because if Davy Zoutenbayer is seeking out the water, he's trying to cool down those wet tyres he's got on right now. There is still a spray coming off the back of the car. There's no doubt it's not ready for dries just yet, but that might be in the back of a couple of drivers' minds. Will Fielding still clear of everybody at the minute, and he has absolutely nobody near him. The closest driver to him is Matt Phillips, and he's 42 seconds up the road. I think Byford Rue has had a spin. Lois Mangle was in the pits, and it says he hasn't made a pit stop. What's that about? That's an interesting one. There's Liam Watkinson. He's in 19th place, just trying to survive in the number 70. Kevin McAtee in the pits. And there's Matt Phillips as well. I'm just trying to work out where everybody is in relation to the lapped cars, because this is where it starts to become a little bit tricky. So Mark Chapman is there at the moment at the top of the track. Kevin McAtee's in the pits. And then Byford Rue is at the bottom part of the circuit. So I would say that with people having to pit and people going off the road, Chappers is probably 2.5 to 3 minutes behind the next car by the looks of it. As Danny Felix has come into the pit lane. So we come to approach the halfway point of this circuit. Yeah, I was thinking that, John. It does look damp as opposed to wet now. And I wonder if Danny Felix will be the bold and the brave to look at dry tyres. Oh, Chris Harris has hit the wall. Chris Harris is in 4th place and he's hit the wall somewhere along this lap, thanks to the unique nature of the camera placement of this circuit. We can't quite see the front of his car, but that looks like significant damage on that Mustang. Let's just see if we can get on board with him and just see how he's having to cope with that. Yeah, he smashed at the windscreen, so that's quite a big shunt. As he gets on the power, there's a little bit of a... Yeah, it looks like the wheel is pulling slightly to the right. Let's just watch him as he comes through here. Yeah, there you go. The car is pulling to the right. So I think Chris Harris will become the next car to drop out of the top 5, which will bring Roland Jordan up to 4th place. Danny's saying he's still got wet tyres on. Oh, and Harris has hit the wall again, and that's just going to keep giving him more damage and more damage. Is he stopping? I think he's stopping, and I think he's going to the pits. Yeah, there we go. So Chris Harris's strong drive ends at the hour mark, and he's going to have to go into the pits and get that fixed. That's going to drop him way down the order. So that'll bring Roland Jordan up to 4th. Although, as wide as he just went at Mud Curve. Because it wasn't Mud Curve. Sometimes the lights and the way that the lights flash from the back of the tail lights gives a different representation of the circuit. No, I was right. It was Mud Curve. I've overcorrected myself, a bit like when you spin off the road. You overcorrect and you spear off into the other side of the barrier. But nevertheless, Roland Jordan is up to 4th position. Jacob Byford-Rue saying he's going for dries. What does he have to lose? It's a good point, Jacob. You don't have anything to lose. Oh, I think Roland Jordan, yeah, he did. I thought he'd run off the road. The drivers are struggling here. The drivers are starting to struggle, and he's had a big hit with the wall there. Let's just have a look. Yeah, that's significant damage. Unbelievable. In the space of 2 to 3 minutes, the Mustangs that were looking so strong. And is Roland Jordan going back to the pits? I think he is. Wow. 2 of the top 5 in the same lap, have had to go back into the pits. Absolutely unpredictable, this race here at the Nurburgring tonight. You cannot, I said at the start of the race, you cannot call what is going to happen, and we are being proven correct. Is that Dan? Don't tell me Dan Hatton's gone off the road. I'm sure I just saw a yellow flag for Dan Hatton. Let's just have a look. Let's go on board. I think he's had a moment, actually. Let's just watch him as he comes through the next couple of corners. I mean, he probably can't believe his luck he's running in the top 5, but that car looks like it has no grip at all. He's fighting the wheel through every corner. I'm waiting till he gets onto the Dottingerhoe straight. Roland Jordan in the pits, as I said before, so that recycles everybody back into their natural positions. That car looks like it's just twitching all over the road. He's struggling to get the car stopped. I think Hatton has hit the wall, you know. But he's got some form of different type of damage. Let's just watch as he goes down the straight. It looks a little bit twitchy. Just watching his speedometer on the right hand side of the circuit. 167. That might be a little bit lower. I think that might be a touch lower than what we'd expect from that Mustang. It does say he's 7.5 seconds down on his best time, so I think he has done something on this lap. Whether he's had a big impact or not. Looks like there's damage on the front of the car, and there's damage on the front left as well. And I wonder if Dan will decide to take the safe option, or will he carry on there? He takes the risky option and carries on. So Dan Hatton, as a result of Roland Jordan's issue, will go up to 4th place. But he is 74 seconds behind. And I tell you what's on for a fight here. Zolt Barabas and Dennis Penders are going to be on for a fight for 2nd place. Those two are only separated by what looks to me to be 2 to 3 seconds. They are very close on circuit. Chris Harris is in 8th position, but I'm not certain how accurate that is. Jan Willem Boss is 9th, which is an astonishing drive from Jan Willem, actually, because he's had 3 races in this championship. He's had a did not start because of technical issues, a did not finish, and now he's in 9th. This is a race of attrition, pure attrition. Howard Dunn, who was in the podium fight before, was in 17th place. And Mark Chapman is now 2.5 minutes behind Danny Zoutenbayer in 18th place. I don't think it's over for Chappers at all. Zolt Barabas is running in 2nd. There you go. So let's just have a little look from the rear view. Because there is Dennis Penders hunting him down. So it's the Hungarian versus the Belgian. In Formula 1 terms, this would be Zolt Baumgartner versus Jackie Ickx. At the Nordschleife, although I don't think Zolt Baumgartner ever drove an F1 car at the Nurburgring, but Jackie Ickx certainly did. But Barabas will start to notice that Ferrari. Because I've talked about this when we've raced at the Nordschleife before, everybody. When you race at a shorter race circuit like Silverstone or Laguna Seca or anywhere that's about 1.5 minutes, if you've got a 3-second advantage at that type of circuit, you'll feel like that is quite a comfortable gap to have. You know that you can have a little mistake somewhere and you'll lose half a second. At the Nordschleife, 3 seconds of a gap feels like one mistake will put them right in touch with you. So Barabas will need to be careful here. He's on for his first ever podium in ACC Race Nation. He has been good value for it. But he has had, I think, a spin or something on this lap, because he is miles down on his best lap. Actually, he hasn't had a spin on this lap, although he might have done. Anyway, enough of me correcting myself. Davy Zoutenbayer is up to 5th, and I mean that just shows you how important it is to keep the car on the race circuit. Davy probably hasn't been the fastest driver tonight, nor has Jeffrey Van Buren, for that matter, in the Ferrari in 6th place, but they've both found themselves in the top 6 simply through a virtue of keeping it on the race circuit and not pushing too hard, just learning the track as they go. Yeah, that's right. That's right, John Stewart. Stewart was saying that actually as well in terms of pit stop strategies earlier before the race. But as you rightly point out, Chapman still does have to make his mandatory pit stop. But I feel like everyone else probably will have to make a pit stop too. I think he might have synchronised back in loop with everybody. I could be wrong, but I feel like that might be the case. There's Davy Zoutenbayer in 5th, and there's Will Fielding, who's just gliding along. He doesn't need to push. He's got a 71-second advantage. He has had a big gap before and done something wrong at Spa, as we talked about earlier, and he's gone off the road before, but I think he is that quick that he could have an accident and go back into the pits, get the car fixed and be back out again and go into the race lead. I do think he's got just that tenacity around here, does Will. I think it will bring him up to a very creditable 3rd place in the driver's standings. I think the big question for the number 22 BMW is what might have been. Because unfortunately for Will, he missed 4 rounds. I mean, let's not detract from the fact that Dan Hatton missed 3 races and Mark Chapman missed 2 races, but to have missed 4 races and still be in an outside chance of contention, as he has a slide just before the mini carousel, to have brought yourself so close if he'd have been in for one of those races and got an average finish of, well, his lowest finish this season was 7th and his best is 1st. I think his average is going to be about 3rd place. He would be right there in the thick of the championship action, but life happens, you know, that's just the way it is. So, Will Fielding coming down the Dottinger-Ho straight. Doesn't need to push too hard. He is still increasing his advantage out there compared to Zolt Barabas, but he doesn't want to put himself in strife and ended up hitting in the barrier like we've seen a few drivers do and end up tumbling down the order. Let's just have a moment, just take stock of where we are in the race. This is the overall picture. Will Fielding is at the front. Then it's Zolt Barabas. He's 5 seconds in front of Dennis Penders. Then it's 70 seconds back to Dan Hatton in 4th place. Davy Zoutenbayer is in 5th position and doing a really commendable job. Then it's Jeffrey Van Buren in 6th place. I think Steve Hall went round. Yeah, that's what I caught on the radar just then. Jan Willem Boss is having a phenomenal drive in 7th place. Has managed to put himself as 2nd Mustang in the field and has pitted, but we do know there are drivers who are running different pit stop strategies, so this can all shake out. But still, Jan Willem Boss in 7th place, that's a really commendable achievement. Danny Felix is 8th. He's been up and down through the field. Joe Warner running inside the top 10. He's having a great race. And Matt Phillips has rose through the order as well to 10th. So he's come back a little bit like Lazarus. Roland Jordan's still in the pits, so I don't quite know yet where he is actually in the race. That's a bit more challenging to identify where he is. Steve Hall is in 12th place. Although I think at this point, if Roland Jordan stays in the pit, Steve Hall will go past him. So Steve will be 11th. Chris Harris will be in 13th place as it stands. Howard Dunn is 14th. Lois Mangle has still not pitted in 15th place. I'm almost gobsmacked at what Lois is managing to achieve here. Jamie Lee is 16th. Danny Zoutenbayer is 17th. Liam Watkinson is 18th. And looking like something from Blade Runner from the back of the shot of that car then. Mark Chapman is 19th. But I think he's now in the cycle with everybody else. There are quite a few people on the same lap as him. I think up to potentially Roland Jordan as it stands. But, you know, it looks like it's going to go back to potentially dry weather because there's no rain falling on the track now. I mean, even though Byford Rue's got the windscreen wipers going in 20th place, it doesn't look like any rain's falling. And then Kevin McEntee is last. I'm just going to get on board with Liam Watkinson. I mean, that's the type of rain that if you were running in dry conditions, you would probably take a little bit of notice of. But you wouldn't think much of it. Now, Liam is down in 18th at the minute. He's just trying to get through to the end. What I want to do is have a little look for where Jacob Byford Rue is, because he, if I'm right in saying, is on the dry tyres at the minute. And I just want to see how he's getting on. A little bit wide over the curbs, but no dramas. Down through the gears into first. If Byford Rue is on the dry tyre, a little bit greasy there. I think it's going to be greasier on the old circuit compared to the GP loop. Into the right-hander. As long as he's keeping the temperature in the tyres, this... Oh, was the R8 snaps with the oversteer over the curbs. Ooh, as he buzzes the limiter there as well. Yeah, the car doesn't look too bad. I don't think it's quicker than wets at the moment, but in half a lap it might be. Did Zolt Barabas just bring out a yellow flag then? That gap between himself and Dennis Penders is only... Oh! Hold it, Jacob! He does! Huge slide, and we've lost another driver, unfortunately, from this race. There's another retirement. Oh, and Jeffrey Van Buren has been in the wars. Or has he had that damage from the start? We've not actually been on board with Jeffrey, to be fair. But he's in front of Davies Outenbayer, so whilst we've been watching the action further back, Van Buren has moved into 5th position. We've lost another car from this race, so we've lost 2 in the last couple of seconds. Just trying to work out if it's who that is that's gone. McEntee is one of them, I know that much. We've lost someone from the middle of the race. Just trying to understand from race control who that might have been. But we've got 43 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. Dennis Penders, look, there we go. And Matt Phillips was with Joe Warner as well. So there are some gaps being closed down here. But I want to go to Dennis Penders. He's got a damaged windscreen, but that doesn't seem to be stopping him. Ooh, little wobble as they went through the left-hander. At Brideside. Towards Birkvirk they come. Now we saw Penders put the pressure on Howard Dunn earlier. Oof, that was a wide line from Barabas. Goodness me, you don't want to go there. Oh, it's wide again. And Penders just looks like he's got the confidence right now. Let's ride on the bonnet cam with him. But I was saying that Penders got past Howard Dunn earlier. And it was not a difficult overtake for him to do. But the thing is that whilst the AMR is very quick, look at this. Look at the closing speed. But Penders, did you notice that? He just eased off the throttle there. There's a little bit of spray just coming off the back of that GTR. That's wide from Barabas. Penders isn't quite close enough. He's going to try and dance around all over the place. He's got it wrong. And Penders spins. And does a full 360. And will carry on unharmed. Well, the track evolution is certainly coming into play there. Penders just ran deep. He was trying to take a slightly different line to Barabas to put him under pressure, and he ended up putting his car into pressures. I will say, whilst we've been chatting, Jeffrey Van Buren is catching Dan Hatton here. That gap is coming down, and it's not insignificant actually. I think Van Buren caught Dan by a good few seconds on that lap that we've just done. But Hatton's still circulating in 4th position. Chris Harris is in 12th. Roland Jordan's still in the pits in 18th position, and Mark Chapman has made his pit stop. Jamie Lee has also made a pit stop as well. So Chappers is potentially, well, might have been in front of Jamie Lee there, but that might have just swapped around. Jan Willem Boss has gone into the pits, and I wonder if he's gone into the pits for that damage, because he didn't have that before. Into the pits goes Danny Felix. Now, are we getting the dry weather tyre change? Is that what is going on right now? Because if that is the case, those that are still out there... Oh, Howard Dunn in the wall. If that is the case, we are going to see some movements and time gaps changing. Zolt Barabas is in the gravel. Danny saying dry's on. Well, there you go. That sums it up. What's Will Fielding going to do? I'm just looking at his tracker at the minute. He's carried on. I suppose for Will Fielding, he is probably the only driver in the whole field who can just go, I can do an extra lap and it won't have any impact on me. But Barabas has lost a lot of time. Even though Penders went for a spin. Oh no, and Mark Chapman's gone and got his stop-and-go penalty. To add insult to injury. If that doesn't make your heart sink into your boots for Chappers, I don't know what will, really. But whilst we've been talking, Zsolt Barabas, he had 6 seconds to Dennis Penders. It's now 2. Just wondering, did Barabas pick up damage? Car seems to be accelerating relatively fine up the straight, actually. So I'm just wondering, maybe if he did pick up any damage, it's just a little bit of an impact somewhere. But this is the next crucial moment in this race. Will they make a pit stop? Ooh, that's awkward as Matt Phillips tries to move out of the way. That's brought Penders actually within a couple of tenths of the Hungarian. Ooh, a little bit wide from Barabas. I wonder if he's thinking about diving into the pits. Yes, there he goes. Penders, it looks like Penders is coming in. I can see his rear view lights. There we go. So Penders is in as well. So the spaces for the podium. Barabas and Penders go into the pits to put on a set of dry tyres. Dan Hatton was being closed down by Jeffrey Van Buren. Whoa! That was a huge impact with the curb. He's going to hit the wall. And he's going to slam into the wall a couple of times more. That will have given Van Buren the fright of his life, hitting that bump the way that he did. Just want to try and find Van Buren on the circuit. There he is. And that's given him some damage. That car's not pointing straight anymore. That was unlucky, that. Van Buren just ran wide, but the way that he bounced off the curb just launched the rear of the 296 in the air. No, I think you're right, John. I think that's who else has gone. It's Rover Rakatamanga. Oh, as Van Buren slides off and he hits the wall again. The weird thing is, though, is that despite going off the road, it looked like he was pulling away from Davies Autenbayer. But I think that's a timing issue. I don't think that's necessarily the case. Penders has got out of the pit, so Zsolt Barabas certainly had damage. So Dennis Penders is back up into second place, where he was a long while ago. Dan Hatton has got into pits. Van Buren will be looking to do the same. And Davies Autenbayer might be thinking, I'm on for a top 5 here. Might be 2 Nissans in the top 5, which just shows you really that consistency is king. Oh, that is a... Oh, and Zsolt Barabas has picked a stop-and-go penalty. And that is significant for him, because that'll pull him all the way away from Dennis Penders. That'll put him in the firing line of Dan Hatton, for that matter. Because he'll have to go trundling down the pits, stop for 30 seconds, and then come back out. So Dan Hatton won't be far away. We are getting to a point in this race where it's still completely wide open. Will Fielding, don't forget, is still on wet tyres. He's not pitted yet. So Will Fielding is still on those wet tyres. So he'll be losing time. Let's just see if we can get on board with the race leader, actually. See how he's coping with these conditions. As he comes into the hairpin, and he's taking it very, very steady as he comes into Nurschleife. He's not pushing at all hard. That's just a very consistent, steady pace. He's not going all guns blazing, and you can see that when he does get the line wrong, he just backs out of it straight away. So the long-time race leader is going to lose a bit of time here to second place at the minute, which is Dennis Penders. But he has navigated the most difficult parts of the circuit in terms of lap time lost. He's now on the straights effectively at the minute for Kesselchen and Mutt Curve. Whoa! That was a little bit peculiar. What happened there? But no matter how cautious he goes, he can afford to be. He's got that luxury to just take his time around this circuit. There's no point in putting your foot down. It's not as if he's under pressure at the minute. But sometimes that can be a false sense of security for drivers. You know, they can think that and then they can push themselves into a mistake. But Will just taking that steady pace, it seems. It's like Lewis Mangle has just caused the brief yellow flag. Looks like he's got that situation under control. He's gone back for it again. He hasn't hit anything. I think he just had a slide somewhere. Danny Felix is up to 8th place. Just trying to find where Jan Willem Boss is. There's Jan Willem Boss, who's having a fabulous drive in 7th. He is a lap down, but Will Fielding hasn't pitted for dries yet, so that'll put him back onto the lead lap. And Davy Zoutenbayer is in 6th position as it stands. In fact, no, he's not, because he has overtaken Jeffrey Van Buren in the pits. And what I'm also considering at the moment for Will is that if he is still running the wet tyres, which I believe he is, what his new concern becomes is tyre temperature. Because thermal degradation is a big problem in these cars. It does say that his tyre pressure is 0, but I don't think that's correct because it says it on Lewis Mangle's car. I think that's just a graphic glitch there. But his thermal degradation will be ripping through the tyres and he'll be losing tread blocks. What he doesn't want is to have a puncture at this point in the lap. Even if it does happen here, for example, yeah, he's got a couple of corners to navigate. Look how slow he's taking it. He knows he can't afford to put the power down. Mark Chapman on this lap, by the way, was he's off the road into the wall. He's got no grip at all. I was saying that Mark Chapman was 18 seconds behind Will Fielding at this point. When we joined him earlier, he's only what's that? 3.5 seconds? 3 seconds? He's absolutely tiptoeing around. I think he'll be grateful that he had that gap. Because I'm just looking at the gap that he's got to Joe Warner, who is the car in front of Dennis Penders at the minute, and it's 2 minutes and 20 odd seconds as Howard Dunn's gone off the road and goes back into the pits, sadly. So that'll drop him down the order. Will has to be careful in these next couple of corners. He can't go flat out. Look at that, he's just lifting. He knows exactly, and that's the sign of a seasoned veteran. Just taking it steady, getting the car slowed down. And he's got one corner to go before he has to get a new set of boots on. And there he goes into the pit lane. Nice and easy into the pits, and he's going to get serviced by the pit crew. So the M4 comes into pit lane, and I believe that Fielding, before the pit stops rolled around, he was 90 seconds clear of Zolt Barabas. But of course, Zolt Barabas then fell off the road. Dennis Penders went off the road as well, so we can't really guesstimate what the advantage is going to be when he comes out of the pits, but he's going to get serviced by the crew. And I think what will be crucial for Will now is just to make sure he doesn't do anything stupid. Lewis Mangle's still circulating in 15th place. as Matt Phillips goes off the road in 12th. Brief yellow flag carries on. But Danny Felix is in 8th place, and Joe Warner is running in 9th. Danny's coming into pit lane, so I wonder if Danny is getting a last little top-up of fuel to go alongside anything else that might be going on. Race director telling us that the track is greasy now. It's not wet anymore, which does make sense. And Will Fielding back to it. He's already out of the pits. And we're getting a time gap for Will Fielding and Dennis Penders. It looks like it's under 80 seconds, but I'm not... We still haven't got the full gap because Penders hasn't crossed the start-finish line yet. So we'll see how much time Will Fielding really lost thanks to the wrong set of tyres. And this is what I said earlier, wasn't it, everybody? In this race, if you're not on the right tyre at the right time, you can lose a heap of time compared to a normal circuit. You know, if you're on the wrong tyre for a lap, you might lose potentially 10-11 seconds in a GT3 car, maybe more if the rain's really intense, but in the conditions we've just seen, 10-11 seconds maybe. It looks like Will Fielding lost potentially 30 or 40 seconds, maybe more. Joe Warner running, well, he's going to move past Chris Harris and Danny Felix. And if that is the case, Joe Warner is having the drive of his life, I think would be fair to say. If that is the case and he's up to 8th and if he doesn't have to pit again, I mean, that will be one of the big shock results. Because I've talked about Joe through this season, about how many times he's finished in 11th place. And he has done it this season as well, where he's fighting for a spot inside the top 10, and he was unlucky not to get there. But right now, he's on for his first ever top 10 result, and I think that would be met with great cheer. He has run wide, just as I said that at the hairpin. It's saying that he's in 9th place, but he is in 8th position at the minute. He is in front of Danny Felix, who's just pitted. I don't know about Jan Willem Boss. I think Jan Willem has got to stop again, but he's a minute and 40 seconds clear of this group, so I don't think Jan has to worry too much. There's Byford Rue circulating in 18th place. Steve Hall's back into the top 10. Danny Zoutenbayer has moved up to 13th. So drivers and positions are shuffling around at the moment. Jeffrey Van Buren is now behind Davy Zoutenbayer after his damage from earlier on in the race. And now we're going to get a proper update on the gap between the race leader and second place. No, we're not. Because if I look at the timing tower and then look at where Dennis Pender's name is, which is half cut out, that looks like it's 90 seconds to me. So 90 seconds by the seams of it for Will Fielding. So maybe he didn't lose as much time as we initially assumed. But he's got a new fresh set of tyres on. Dry as it'll be. Still a little bit greasy, the conditions for the drivers, so they're not out of the woods at all. Lois Mangles circulating in 14th place. He's 8 seconds clear of Liam Watkinson, who was moved up through the field. Matt Phillips is in 13th place, behind Danny Zoutenbayer, who's in 12th. And Danny Felix has, whilst we've been talking, got past Joe Warner. So Danny now back into 8th position. A good championship for Danny, I think, this season. I think he's had a really strong drive. I think that key moment back at Bathurst was, it could have almost been the outstanding result of the season. Not to say that it hasn't been a wonderful result itself, but he just got denied that opportunity to have a fight with Dennis Penders on the final lap for what could have been a first ever podium, because he looked quick at Bathurst. But nevertheless, he's got to grips with that McLaren. I think this has been his most competitive season with ACC Race Nation, and for a driver who used to be part of, whoa, that's wide and that's into the wall. A little bit of damage for Danny, he'll get away with that. But for a driver who was part of the next gen guard years and years ago, came back to the championship, that's run by John Wells and the gang, I think he's reacquitted himself into sim racing really nicely, and is a great addition for the league. Although he has had 2 spins since we've been on board with him, and Dennis Penders will gradually drive around him. If he takes too long getting this car turned around, Joe Warner's going to go back in front of him. He is. So Joe Warner has the easiest overtake he'll ever have, and Joe Warner now moves back into 8th position. This race has had it all, and there's still 23 minutes and 40 seconds remaining. But I think Joe Warner, he's having a fabulous race. I'm not going to talk about him anymore because I do seemingly curse everybody every single time I talk. Byford Rue back in the pits, which is a shame. He's had a good campaign as Jacob with that Audi. He's had a good championship. He's certainly been the best of that rear pack quartet. And, at Bathurst, again, another one who shone during that race a few rounds ago. Could have got a top 6 result. He finished 8th. He finished 10th last week at the Laguna Seca round. I think he's got to grips with that car. And we've talked before about the R8 because it obviously doesn't have manufacturer support, but it's still a race winner in the series. We look at the Wild Intercontinental Championship at Monza at the weekend, and Audi, of course, won that race. The R8 is still a competitive car over one lap. Maybe in traffic it has that little bit of difficulty because it can't use the full limits of the mechanical grip that the car clearly has, just because of the track disadvantage when running behind somebody else. But that car is still pretty good, and as Hartle Toby has demonstrated when he's raced this season, that car is capable of getting podiums, if not race wins. But I think for Byford Rue, he's had a good campaign in that car and has really improved as the season has gone on. I think Steve Hall has had a good season as well. Since he got that problem with his Thrustmaster wheel seemingly fixed now, he's been right back at the sharp end, and he has had a little bit of misfortune, don't get me wrong. He's not had the easiest championship in the world, but in the last 5 races that he's done, he's finished 4th twice. He's hit the wall in the last few seconds. He's had a 3rd place and in that time, and I think that just shows you that there's still life to be had in that car for Steve Hall, and he can work himself back to the front of the race. It's been a long time since we last saw him have a race win, but I think podiums next season, now that he's got the hardware fixed, he should be able to go for it. And I think Danny Felix has gone into the wall, and I think he's had a big moment. I just scroll through here. That's a big moment. He can't turn the car. So Danny Felix is going to drop outside of the top 10. He's going to have to drag that car back. Oh, Liam Watkinson has got a stop and go penalty. So Danny Felix will drop. I was going to say he'd drop outside the top 10, but Danny Zoutenbayer is miles away at the moment. Mark Chapman has moved into 15th place. I did say this race wasn't over for him. Dan Hatton is only 4th at the moment, and if Danny Felix has gone into the wall and he's got significant damage and he hits the wall again, Mark Chapman would need to find 6 places. Liam Watkins has got a penalty. Lois Mangle is having a brilliant race, but I feel Mark Chapman can catch him. You just don't know, do you? With 20 minutes to go, he's really all to play for. But Felix with big damage has been overtaken by Steve Hall. And Joe Warner sits in 8th position. That is a wonderful story, isn't it? And that's another good point, John. That I almost have a co-commentator. It's wonderful, but John highlighting that Joe Warner's on a controller in that Mercedes. What he's doing is absolutely astonishing. He is going to get out of the way because he's got he's got one set of lap traffic in the form of Zolt Barabas trying to get past him. He's also got Howard Dunn trying to unlap himself. He's getting the blue flag, so he moves to the right-hand side. I think Barabas is just going to take the slipstream to go through on the left-hand side. I don't think Joe's going to have to do too much with that. He just has a little lift and... Ooh, Joe, don't do that to me. Because this has been... Yeah, this has been a race of attrition. That is what I'm going to say. He's probably better off letting Howard Dunn go past him just so that he doesn't have to deal with it, because the next car he's got coming after him is Steve Hall, who, despite his shenanigans earlier, he is looking like he's going to potentially come up to 8th position. Potentially he'll be battling with Joe shortly. Danny Felix is still not on that Dottinger Ho straight. John, have you confused yourself or have you confused me here? Because my co-commentator temporarily for this evening is either confusing himself or confusing me. Because if you're saying that Joe's on the controller, he's doing a fantastic job. But if you're saying that Jacob Byford-Rue's on the controller, he's also doing a fantastic job. But they are two very different people. Jacob is on the controller. Okay, there you go. So in the Audi. So Joe, not on the controller. He's on the wheel. But even still, I think this might just be the magnum opus for that Mercedes. He's got effectively 2 laps to go, including the one that he's on. It does depend where Will Fielding is on the circuit. I can't quite see where Will Fielding is. Ah, there he is. He's down in the bottom, well, I say the bottom left of the middle sector. So he's effectively coming out of, I think that's Arenberg by the looks of it, or Floodplatz. It's just down there. Don't forget Zolt Barabas, he's still got to serve a stop and go penalty in 3rd place. So that means Dan Hatton's going to be on the podium. It's absolutely wild for Dan. What a race it's been for Dan Hatton. Just has steadily rose through the order and hasn't put a foot wrong. He's took the cautious approach tonight, Dan, but it seemingly has paid off. Steve Hall is there now, so we're going to see Steve Hall make the catch and probably pass on Joe Warner. Danny Felix is in the pits and Steve Hall is just taking his time. You can see the Mercedes, the next car up the road for Steve Hall. I think actually at this point in the race there's no point in me thinking, because it's that wild. Let's just go back to the timing tower, just give it stock of where everybody is. Will Fielding leads the way. Dennis Penders is in 2nd place, on for another podium this season. Zolt Barabas runs in 3rd. Dan Hatton is 4th. Davy Zoutenbayer doing an incredible job in 5th place. Jeffrey Van Buren is 6th, also doing a stellar drive. Jan Willem Boss, absolutely incredible race from him so far in the 100. Joe Warner is about to come under attack from Steve Hall. And it's just a question of where does the Ferrari place the car to go past. Will he be able to just get past, or will Joe fight it out? I think Joe's going to fight this one out, which is nice to see. Danny Felix still in the pits. So Danny Zoutenbayer's got into the top 10. Depends how big that... Depending on how bad that damage is for Danny, he might get cut by Lois Mangle here. Who is doing... This is another day for stellar drives. Pulls up the inside. I think Joe's going to let that one go. And he does. So Joe Walnut gets overtaken by Steve Hall. And he moves out of the way of Dan Hatton as well for the blue flags. Dennis Pender's speed compared to Zolt Barabas has been really impressive since he got in front of the Hungarian. 32 seconds clear of that guy. It's the day of the underdog today. It really has been just drivers putting in performances that are well deserved. You know, they go through such a challenging time through this season. You look at Lois Mangle in particular. You know, he's one of those guys who hasn't been near the front since he started with ACC Race Nation. He did get involved in a couple of incidents earlier on in the season when he first joined, not really through his own fault, to be honest with you, but he's in 12th place and driving a perfectly fine race here. He's doing a grand job. Jamie Lee's had a few struggles tonight. The circuit has certainly been biting him back in the backside, but he's still circulating, which is crucial. Roland Jordan, an hour ago we'd have said best driver of the season for him, and it really was at that point. Same for Chris Harris, but the two Mustangs both went off the road on the same lap, and it hasn't been the same since. Howard Dunn's been in the pit lane a couple of times, and he's been in the wall again, and that's going to be significant damage, and he's going back to the pits with that one. Oh, and we've just seen Liam Watkinson fire it off into the barrier as well. I think for Liam, though, he will probably get that car back to the pits. He's much further around the circuit than where Howard Dunn was. Danny saying 1 minute 55 amount of damage on that car. He has got back out on track. And Will Fielding continues to lead the race. He's nearly 2 minutes in front of Dennis Penders. But I think for Will Fielding, he's going on to his penultimate lap. Do you know the frustrating thing for Will, though, is that he can't slow down to try and do one less lap because he doesn't have a big enough gap over Dennis Penders, which is quite wild to think. So he's going to have to do 2 more laps, including the one that we're on. And then we'll come to the end of this 2-hour season. And not just the end of this 2-hour season, but this 2-hour race, but this whole season as well. It's been a wonderful championship. It's had its highs, it's had its moments of carnage, as we always have at ACC. But we are on our way to crowning a first-time champion in the form of Dan Hatton. And I know that he's had a bit of fortune in this race with what happened with Mark Chapman, but that does not discredit the performance he's put in over the previous 14 rounds. Let's not forget, he's missed 3 races this season. You know, and his momentum in this championship has just continued. He had that wobble at the Hungaroring where he finished 17th, and you thought, oh, maybe he's just gone off the road as we were talking. Which he can afford to do, to be fair. It's one of the few times he can afford to go off the road. But he had that wobble back at the Hungaroring where he finished 17th, and you thought, is that the end of his championship charge? But he bounced back immediately after that. The next race, when we went off to Zandvoort, he was brilliant around Zandvoort, won that day, and has been right involved in the championship ever since. I know, John, I know. It's a bloody nightmare, isn't it? I'm not even... Do you know the worst thing is that I think the problem is that every time I talk about somebody, they're listening into this stream and they go, oh, Jack's talking about me, and they go off the road. I don't think it's a curse. I think it's just everybody's ego's inflated. He is coming up under pressure from Steve Hall, is Dan Hatton, who's a lap behind him, is Steve, so he could probably let him go if he wanted to. But this has been a breakout season for Dan, and I was delighted for him when he got his first race win at Brands Hatch. He didn't expect to get pole position that day, but not only did he get the pole, he fended off Stuart Packham. He got past Stuart Packham as well towards the end of the race after the pit stops, and that really just catapulted him into the position he finds himself in. And I think when you see the leap that he has made from the McLaren that he drove in season 11 to this Mustang, it just seems to have gelled instantly. And he is 9 minutes and 10 seconds away from being crowned the season 12 champion. But he's still got to get round these laps because it's far from over. We've seen Danny Felix smack the wall and lose a minute and a half and fall outside of the top 10. It's all down to Dan now to put it together for these last remaining minutes. So Barabas in the pits. I'm just trying to see where he's going to come out in fourth place, actually, because Davy Zoutenbayer is about half the length of Germany behind the fight for the podium. But Zolt will be kicking himself because he was pretty much confirmed podium. It would have been his first ever podium in the series. I think Zolt's had a... Let's just talk about Zolt for a moment, because he was the first of one of the Hungarian contingent who came to join the championship, and he's done... This is his fifth race of the season, but I think he's got better as the campaign has gone on. He's been really consistent. 6th, 5th and 7th in the last 3 races. He was quite quick in his debut race as well, but he had a bit of misfortune that day. But since then, him and this car have really gelled quite nicely. I think that sets him up for a good championship challenge in season 13 in the GTR. Let's hope that he can continue on that good form. We'll have to wait and see. One of my... it's very difficult to call a driver of the day, actually, to be honest, because they're all doing a great job. Joe Warner's in the pits. Why? Why is Joe Warner in the pits? I'm just looking to see where Danny Zoutenbayer is and where Danny Felix is. Joe, this is the glorious opportunity to score your first ever top 10. Why are you on the pits in the penultimate lap? I'm hoping it's just a fuel issue and he hasn't hit the wall or anything. Will Fielding now 1 minute and 30 in front of Dennis Penders. That's a phenomenal performance. Jeffrey Van Buren, he's in 6th position at the minute. I think Van Buren's been much better since he transferred back into the Ferrari. Has had a podium this season, let's not forget, at Silverstone. Had a really nice race there. Hasn't quite hit the peaks I think that he is capable of, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I think that for Jeffrey, he's had a bit of a disrupted season, having to go from changing between cars. And, you know, I remember when he was driving at Brands Hatch, the car, it just didn't seem right. And then since he swapped out of the car back into the Ferrari, it seems like he's been back at home. But I think there's more to come from Jeffrey. He's top 3 championship finisher in previous seasons. He can certainly get back up there. I think, just to talk a little bit about Davy Zoutenbayer for a moment, because I do like to talk about the drivers and have a little brief overview of their season. I think for Davy, he probably should be inside the top 10 in the drivers' standings. He's 12th at the minute, and I don't think he's going to... I think actually he might just squeak into the top 10. We'll have to wait and see. But I'd like to have known how he'd have got on for these final 5 races had he been involved in them. You know, we haven't seen him since the 2-hour race at Silverstone, but up until that point he was just consistently getting top 8 finishes. Really consistent, no issues, nice driving, and I think for Davey, if he can continue on with that Nissan next season, maybe there's a chance for him to add to his podium collection. We'll have to see. Joe Warner's back out on circuit. Where is he in relation to Danny Zoutenbayer? He's in front of Danny Zoutenbayer, so he's still in 9th place. That gap is not at 1 minute 10 though, is it, ladies and gentlemen? That looks like about 5 or 6 seconds. I think we'll have to follow Danny Zoutenbayer here. So he's got his brother in front of him. Oh, the household will be absolutely... That'll be a funny dinner to have at the weekend. Oh, how did you get on your race last weekend, boys? Oh, well, I lapped my brother. Oh, that's typical. At the Nurburgring. Ooh. That might be a bit of a reaction at the Zoutenbayer household. John's saying that his driver of the day is Dennis Penders. I think his recovery's been impeccable, considering he got turned. He got turned around, didn't he, earlier on with Dennis, and then he spun off the road as well. He's done really well to come back. And that is the final lap confirmed. So this is it now. Nice exit from Danny Zoutenbayer. Ever the Hunter just goes on by. Joe Warner is 83 seconds in front of Danny Felix, and that is the last time I'm going to mention that fact for the rest of this race. I'm still having a debate about it, really, because I think that Will Fielding hasn't put a foot wrong. Strategically, he left it a lap late for the wet tyres, but that is such a nitpick that it can't really be a fault, because he had such an advantage that it turned out he didn't actually lose anything in the grand scheme of it all. You know, I could even say like Jan Willem Bosch has had a brilliant drive this evening. Just done his fastest lap on the last lap. The number 100. Had a relatively low qualifying position, but just hasn't put a foot wrong. Great drive from him tonight. Really great drive. Howard Dunn has found the barrier. Every time I cut to Howard Dunn, he's always flying off into the wall, which is a great shame because that's not representative of his pace at all tonight. Chapman has found his way up to 12th. I mean, that is an astonishing recovery from Mark Chapman. It truly is, but unfortunately... And I'm going to just focus on Chappers here for a moment before we cut to Will Fielding. To have had such a consistent season like Mark has done has been so impressive. This is the first time all season he's going to have finished outside of the top 10. Not only has he missed 2 races, but that level of performance is unparalleled. And I truly believe that without the incident that would have happened tonight, he'd have carried on that top 10 performance. Where he would have finished, it's in the hands of ifs, buts and maybes, really, in this world that we race in now. But I think for Chapman, don't take anything away from the season he has had. I don't think there's a driver like him in the field in terms of consistency for season 12, and that might shock you when I say that, but Dan Hatton has had a couple of moments where he's gone off the road, and like I said earlier, at round 6 and round 13, where he was involved in a few incidents like at Kyle Army and the Hungaroring. Will Fielding has spun off on a couple of occasions. Brands Hatch springs to mind, Spa. When you think about Chappers, it's very difficult to mention a time where he went off the road. You know, and that just really shows you what a top-class driver he is. And it's a shame that it's been taken out of his hands in terms of the championship fight tonight, but he deserves as much acclaim as it is possible to achieve. And I think to recover to 12th place after the incidents that he's had is almost equivalent to when a couple of seasons ago Danny Zoutenbayer started the race a lap down and finished in the top 10. I think it's a legendary drive from Chapman, but sadly he won't get the reward that some would argue he certainly deserves. But we are on the final lap. The final lap of season 12. And are you gonna believe me when I say this? Dan Hatton's not on the podium. Dan Hatton is in the pits. So that means Zolt Barabas is going to get a podium. Dan Hatton has absolutely clattered the wall on the final lap. I can't believe what this championship has thrown up on the final round. Dan Hatton is in the pit lane. It's... Where are Van Buren and Zoutenbayer on the lap at the minute? If that damage is too significant, I'm just trying to work this out. So, if he finishes in 6th place, they'd be level on points. I'm just trying to... Where's Jan Willenboss is... Well, Jan Willenboss is on the other side of the circuit. So, if he does come out in 6th place, himself and Mark Chapman will be level on points. This is absolutely unbelievable. There's no other word for it. Jan Willenboss is actually about to go a lap down, so Dan Hatton's blushes is going to be spared. He can't finish lower than 6th place if he does get overtaken. Because when Jan Willenboss goes a lap down, he won't be able to go onto the lap that Dan Hatton is on. This is absolutely phenomenal. This has been, along with Bathurst and potentially Silverstone. Oh, Byford Rue spins right in front of Will Fielding. This might not be over yet. Will Fielding might not catch Willenboss just yet. Dan Hatton's still in the pits. And Davy Zoutenbayer is in 4th. And Van Buren is in 5th place. This all now comes down... The championship literally comes down to when Dan Hatton gets out of the pit lane and whether Jan Willenboss... No, there you go. That's the end of that answer. Just trying to escalate a little bit of drama. Dan Hatton decides otherwise. He gets out of the pits and Jan Willenboss is just in front of Will Fielding at the minute. And I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I think they're going to finish level on points. I just need to do a little quick bit of workings out. Just going to follow Will Fielding, though, because he has been astonishing. I think it is John. Will Fielding, hey, he's been unbelievable this season. He has really been, and he's one to watch for the championship for sure in season 13. If he can put a campaign together where he is there for most of the races, he'll be able to do it. He'll be able to potentially win this championship. He gets past Jan Willenboss down the straight, and that is going to lock Dan Hatton into 6th place. Doesn't matter what happens to Dan now, unless Will Fielding decides to let the Mustang go. We'll see. They go side by side. Boss doesn't want to let this go. I think he wants to finish that final lap. Now he lets him go. Fielding gets past him on the final lap, through the final couple of corners. It has been a masterful drive from Will Fielding. What a performance. It's his 6th win of the season, and it is astounding. What a race from Will Fielding. Jan Willenboss, a beautiful drive from him tonight. That is something to be proud of. Oh my God. Oh my God. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Danny Felix is still in the pit lane. No, Mark Chapman's just finished the race in 12th. Danny Felix got across the line. Oh, this is all up in the air. This is absolutely up in the air. I'm just trying to work out on the fly. So Dan Hatton is going to finish in 6th place. Mark Chapman will finish in 12th. The gap in points between the two going into this race was 6. Mark Chapman was on 316 and Dan Hatton was on 310. With the scores applied, Mark Chapman, will end up on 335 points, and Dan Hatton will end up on 335 points. If Danny Felix hadn't have got across the start-finish line, Mark Chapman would have been the champion. That's how close that was. That's how close that was in terms of the result. And just to give you a little bit more context, Will Fielding is going to finish on 325 points, 10 points behind the two. But I want to concentrate just for a moment on Dennis Penders, because this has been a real storied drive from Dennis. He got that podium at Bathurst where he kept his nose clean, but tonight he has been fast. He has been electrically quick. And I think whilst Will Fielding has been in a league of his own, Dennis Penders has shown tonight that the speed that he has is there. And when he's got the bit between his teeth, he can mix with the best of them. And Dennis Penders is going to come across the line for his second podium of the season and his joint best ever result in the championship. What a drive from Dennis Penders. That is wonderful from him. A great, well-deserved performance from the 103 Ferrari. Zolt Barabas, 10 minutes ago, was not going to finish on the podium. But thanks to drama for Dan Hatton, he is going to get his first podium at the final round of the season. Norbert Mikulec will be cheering on from his home for this man. Because Zolt Barabas this season, I said it before, he's been a nice addition to the championship. He just slotted in to the upper midfield straight away. And he's had a really great drive. A really great drive from this man. And he's going to get rewarded with the podium that we didn't see coming 10 minutes ago. But Zolt Barabas, the Hungarian, is coming down the Dottinger straight now. Into the kink left. Just underneath the way ahead bridge. Steve Hall has finished the race whilst we've been talking. He's in 8th position. But Barabas has got a couple of corners to go. It's going to be a Nissan 3-4, by the way. The Hungarian comes out of the final corner. Little wiggle. But it's his first podium in ACC Race Nation. And Barabas is delighted. Look at him. He's flashed the lights. He's weaving the car. That's a great, great drive for Barabas. Not without issue. But, of course, it is the Nordschleife. Davies Altenbayer, this is a really strong drive from him. He's going to be 4th. He's 10 seconds in front of Jeffrey Van Buren, who is 16 seconds in front of Dan Hatton. There are still cars circulating out there. Danny Altenbayer is looking like to be the next car to come across the line in 9th place. And everybody, look at this. I'm just going to say it. Danny Felix is at the bottom half of the circuit. And Joe Warner's in 10th. I'll wait for a little bit before I do anything, I promise. But Davies Altenbayer, this for a man who's not driven at the Nordschleife. He's not done 2 hours. He's not driven in the in the championship for 5 weeks, has joined in tonight, done an hour of practice, and is going to come home in 4th. That's the best reason why I've ever seen anybody spin off, ladies and gentlemen. Jacob, for those that can't see, Jacob Byford-Rue, who has finished this race in 15th, and he had that spin in front of Will Fielding, apparently his cat jumped on him whilst he was racing on the controller, and his cat, probably thinking he's a better driver than Jacob, has decided, no, I want to go around the Nordschleife, and spun the car around. But Zoutenbayer is blasting down the straight towards a brilliant 4th position. Van Buren will come home in 5th place as well. But this is it. This is the moment that I don't think Dan Hatton would have imagined at the start of the season. He's going to draw level on points with Mark Chapman, but he will win it based on countback of the 6 race wins he's had this season. He's just got a couple of corners to go. It's been a man meshed with machine this season, and it has blended beautifully well. Dan Hatton is your season 12 champion here at ACC Race Nation. And boy, did he make everybody almost have a heart attack on the final lap. But that is one of the great results of the championship. Dan Hatton is your series winner. And I wonder if he's realised it yet. What a story for Dan Hatton. And let's keep the applause coming, everybody. Because it's going to happen. Nearly 4 seasons in the making. Joe Warner in the big Mercedes that he's struggled with all season long is going to get a top 10 result. He just needs to navigate the last few corners, not have a big accident. He's going to go off the road, isn't he? Yeah, of course he does, because it's the final corner of the season. But Joe Warner, round of applause, everybody. It's his first ever top 10 in ACC Race Nation in a car that he's grappled with. It is Joe Warner's day in 10th place. We're still waiting on Danny Felix and Liam Watkinson, although Liam Watkinson's the front of his car looking a little bit like Kit from Knight Rider. But he is going to drag that car to the finish, kicking and screaming. And Felix will be in 11th place. But let's just have a little discussion on this. The championship has been settled on countback. On countback. I didn't think that would happen tonight. I thought that one of the 2 drivers of Chapman or Hatton would have won it based by a couple of points. But to win it on countback is absolutely unbelievable. It just shows you how brilliant Mark Chapman's drive was back through the field and how unlucky he was in the end to not make it to a 3rd championship. But don't take it away from him, and definitely don't take it away from Dan Hatton, who will be celebrating with all of the beer in the UK this evening, I'm sure. Liam Watkinson's going to drag his car to the finish. He has a little slide out of the final corner. It looks a bit greasy, actually. Has there been more rain since we've been talking? Yeah, the windscreen wipers have gone back on. We've had a bit more rain in the last few minutes. But Liam Watkinson's going to drag the car to 14th place in the end to finish off his season in that Porsche. And Danny Felix is coming down the main straight as well. It has been a race of attrition. And there's really only been, I would say, 2 drivers who've come through it without any problems. Those are our top 2. Well, that's actually our first place finisher, and I would say Dennis Penders. Danny Felix has actually ran out of time. So he will get across the line, though. There he is. He's coming up now. But Will Fielding is your race winner for the final event of Season 12. Dennis Penders is second, and Zolt Barabas takes his third position, the best result of his campaign and his first ever podium in the series. A brilliant drive from Davy Zaltenbayer to get fourth. Jeffrey Van Buren is fifth. Dan Hatton, our champion, is in sixth place. Jan Willem Boss had a brilliant drive to seventh place. We haven't really talked about that in the finishing results, but what a drive from Boss. He'll be delighted with that. Steve Hall had a great drive back through the field, a good recovery from him to get to eighth place. Danny Zaltenbayer was ninth in the end after a bit of a yo-yo event, and Joe Warner, first ever top 10. Danny Felix was 11th, giving everybody a heart attack in the Dan Hatton camp because he nearly allowed Mark Chapman back into the championship, but Chappers will finish second in the drivers' standings in the end, tied on points but on countback for 12th place. Lois Mangle with a really character-building drive today in 13th. I said it was important for him to get to the end. Not only has he got to the end, he's also driven really strongly. Matt Phillips was 14th. Liam Watkinson was 15th. Jacob Byford-Drew was 16th. Howard Dunn, after a really good start to this race, ended up tumbling down to 17th with Jamie Lee in 18th. Chris Harris, sadly in the pits for most of that race at the end, in 19th. Roland Jordan in 20th. Those two could have had a podium today. That's the way it works sometimes. Kevin McEntee, who will probably have to go into hiding after this event. And then after that, Rover Rakatamanga was another driver that we lost during the race. And we also lost the debutant as well, in the form of Daniel Takacs. But that is the conclusion to season 12 here at ACC Race Nation. It's been a long campaign full of trials, tribulations, wonderment, heartbreak, surprise, every sort of adjective that you could throw into the mix. As always, from me, it's been a wonderful pleasure to be part of this championship, and I'm looking forward to seeing how season 13 transpires. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. I'm looking forward to all of the action. But for one last time for season 12, Dan Hatton, the number 55 Ford Mustang driver, is your champion. Let that ring across the sky. I'm Jack Millington, your commentator for ACC Race Nation. Thank you very much for everybody who's watched all the action this season. All the action has been fabulous. Every single race has been wonderful. I cannot give you any more superlatives than that. All of this can be reviewed and watched back on my YouTube channel, JackTM53 Synopsis. I will put all of that on there that you can go and explore in your own time. So please do that. And before I say anything else, just one more point to make about the season. If you want to get involved with ACC Race Nation and all of the action, you can do. Just go and sign up and have a little look on the Discord and find out all of the information for what is happening in season 13. That will be a great season to come for everybody involved. And please do get involved, because more drivers, more action, more commentary. That's what we're all after. But I've been Jack Millington, your commentator for all of season 12. Thank you very much for watching it. A big shout out to all of the directors and the admin team within the series. Thank you for your hard work and everything that has gone on this season. Loads of comments who are flying in. Thank you very much. You're all very kind. It has been it's been my favourite season, actually, of all the ones that I've commentated on, to be honest. But I've drawn this outro out for too long. I won't keep this any longer. Wherever you might be in the big wide world, have a good one, and we'll see you in season 13.